Doo-doo-doo. And okay, here we go. Here we go.
Looks like we're live, man.
Yeah. All right. So, welcome to the Black Tower. I'm your host, your guide, your brother, the sorcerer on my soul, the psychopath.
The psychopath. I guess we're both psychopaths.
We could be.
I think we are.
Can
Well,
we
you know how
tell
they say
them?
like 1 in 4 is a psychopath?
I'm about a 2 or a 3. I don't go for the full blown name. That is Schneck.
That's Sneck Plissken. He's my little cohort tonight. For at least a little while. I'll have to put him away if he gets too busy.
Hell yeah.
But it's nighttime here, so he's all kinds of active. They like being out at night. So
Eternal creature.
he's a little baby. He's only a little, maybe 4 or 5 months old. I don't know if you can see him good. There he is.
How big is his teeth, man?
You know, they don't have big teeth.
Yeah, I know those.
Yeah, but ball pythons have inside their mouth, they've got like little tiny like hooked teeth that's more like Velcro. So when they bite something, it can't get out of its mouth, but they're not meant to puncture it or hurt it that much. So they grab it and they hold on to it and they wrap usually like the first maybe half or a third of their body around it. Like he's actually constricting me a little bit right now just to hold on. No, he's not trying to hurt me. They'll grab it with like the front part of their neck and their body, and they'll just crush it. And it only takes like less than a minute. And they'll go to town. Like he's squeezing me a little bit right now. I think he might be working some poo out.
But, all right. Well, we've had the pleasure of talking about Sneck.
Yeah, we had the pleasure of Sneck now.
Yeah.
He's my little whatchamacallit, Sneck Plissken, for anybody who gets the reference.
I still like the little fellow. All right, so on with the subject at hand. This was really last minute. Once again, I want to thank Thorne for being a willing victim. I mean, participant. Cohort.
We're going to do a demo of the topic tonight.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about magical attacks, man. This is going to be kind of wide range. We're going to go everything from how to protect against magical attacks to, the most effective magical attacks. I've got a lot in my toolbox that I use, and I'm willing to share what I know with the audience to maybe help them. And also, because a sorcerer's work is never done, and though we consider ourselves masters, we are yet always students. If you have any suggestions or ideas, feel free to put them in the chat. I'd be more than glad to learn something new.
Especially questions or anything like that, because sometimes Waylon and I just wax poetic for about an hour straight, and we forget our topic, so questions are good.
Yeah, and I'm going to definitely be keeping up with chat this time. I hope you are too.
I will try. I don't always get a chance because it's across the table from me, so I can be on camera better, but I do check when you start talking a long time. I usually do check a little bit. So.
All right, cool. With that being said and done, I'd like to wish each and every single one of you welcome for another lovely late night adventure. Roderick, thank you for being here, man. I know it's 3 a.m. in the morning. That's usually people's winding down time, even for nocturnal folks. So thank you for being here.
Yep.
And
there's Frank and Patchwork. What's up, Patchwork?
Yeah, no shit, right? And anybody else that comes in here. So anyway,
Logan. There's Logan.
Oh hell yeah. Well, how the fuck are you saying who's here? If they don't say something, I don't know.
Well, because they said something. That's how.
I knew that. All right. So, protection from the dark arts.
You want to start with protection?
That's usually I do. Fuck yeah, I do. All right. So the very first thing you'll notice is that I am wearing this lovely.
We're doing a fashion show too.
All right.
In Africa, these are fashionable. But anyway. Yeah, the warlords will wear them around their neck like a necklace.
That's a cigarette patchwork. Hand-rolled cigarette. Top of tobacco I get has less of those chemicals and crap they spray on stuff, man.
Oh, yeah, when you pack your own. I used to smoke a lot. And, man, I was bad. I was real bad. But I quit a while ago. And I agree with Waylon. When you roll your own, it's like 10,000 times more likely to not kill you instantly. As a
You might smoke 2 to 3 per one regular
that's
cigarette.
true too. You get a lot more out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, getting aside from all that. Okay, so like for example, well, let's talk about basic protection first off, okay? And this, a lot of people when they think of magical protection, they're thinking of, you gotta draw the 5 point star in the quarters and all that stuff and all
Yeah.
this. I like to be a little bit more down to earth and practical with it. All
Sure.
right, so a hat is just a hat. But the thing about it is that if you look at it, it also covers the head.
Mm-hmm.
And covering the head, what you're doing is you're protecting your mind against any subconscious psychic attacks from assholes and would-be enemies. And that's why, like, I wear a hat because I just like wearing a hat, but it hasn't always been that way. I'm used to not wearing a hat, but I will, especially with the idea of when I know that I need the extra defense and protection. It's a psychological. It's a mind fuck you do to yourself, but it allows an extra shield of guarding around your mind.
It kind of goes back to that costuming conversation we had the last chat, where when you wear something, whether it's empowered or not, if you feel empowered from it, whatever it is, it's going to help you. And if you do something, like you said, if there's a symbolic significance like a hat, it's going to add to that as well.
Yeah, and the next thing I'd like to go into are coats. I like to wear. I love when fall and winter gets here because I can wear my trench. And I have a nice London fog, about $400 fucking long trench that I fucking love. It was gave to me as a gift by a brother who saw me having to sell what I call my priest coat years ago due to financial hardships, and I think it was his uncle or something that gave it to him, and he found me. He literally hunted me down just to give it to me to replace the one that I had to get rid of, and I've held on to it for the last 16 years.
Right.
But so what does a coat do? A coat works the same way, except you got to remember one thing: when it comes to magical attacks, first things first, you got to protect your mind. But now then you also have to think on a practical, like physical fucking level. If somebody was attacking you, the most dangerous place that they can get to you is from behind. Rogues do it from behind, for those of you who can catch that one. But aside from that, and so coats, trench coats, stuff like that. Hell, I have a solid white Corona hoodie that I call my bowl of cereal, and it's kind of stupid. The name for it was retarded and it was a joke. But the thing about it is that it once put on, you can literally feel it. It's not just physical. You can feel energetically that it covers over and protects, your vitals and your back and stuff like that. Any kind of clothing can be used for this. You don't have to have anything fancy. Like for example, I'm wearing black and red. Black is a color that negates most things. Red is force of will, stuff like that. So keep your color correspondences about so and you got this. Now this is just for practical protection against magical attacks. Next thing I'd like to go over is jewelry. For example, and I'm not talking about like I have a 5 point star ring, pinnacle ring, but this ring particularly represents a covenant between me and the gods that I work with. So it's not really a symbol of protection, and it doesn't work for protection. It works to project my will through the use of archetypes and god masks and so forth and so on. A lot of the times you can find rings with gems in them, like I'm using my original class ring because it's emerald and white gold. Back in high school, I will never forget, everybody was trying to figure out why in the hell that wasn't my birthstone. Why would I order a class ring with my birthstone in it? And, and all this other stuff. And it's like I told them, because I like it.
Yeah.
Green speaks to me. It has, there's something about it I just liked, and even before it was magical. That's why I chose it. Yes, Cinder, I definitely charge them. some rings, like for example, like the Pinnacle ring that I have for Covenant, it maintains a charge. It's you do not have to charge Covenant items. Items that connect you with deity, you never have to charge them. They're constantly lit on the astral.
Yeah, that's correct. Any
Uh,
item, any object like that, like when you consecrate it to a god, a deity, a demon, usually, with some exceptions, sometimes you do have to deal with it, but it's part of their pact with you to make sure that that item is always going to be working for you and never is going to run out, so to speak. It's just how it is.
yeah, it's like Thorne there. He had to take a ring off Thorne. You got a second you can show yours, buddy?
Oh, I got a whole bunch of rings. I love having rings on.
Look at that one. Now tell us a little bit about that one. What you use
See
that
that
for?
one? Honestly, that's just jewelry for me right now. But you can tell by the symbolism that anything that comes forward sees the face of death. If I don't usually wear my for video, I don't usually wear too many of my. Actually, I haven't really empowered any of my rings. What I do have on though is Nicodemus, which is the physical home of my familiar. He's in this amulet, this necklace right here, and it's kind of significant because this was what he basically sleeps in, and I have to feed him through it and everything else. But anything, he would protect me from most things right off the bat, in all honesty. But usually for jewelry, it's also like you said, or like I said, I should say, it's a mental thing as well. Just sometimes having things on empowers your spirit, empowers your sense of the sorcerer's your sense of your sorcerer's nature. And when you feel like a badass, when you have confidence, magic has look, let me tell you something. Magical attacks are hard. Anyone who wants to hurt somebody with magic that has any kind of will or strength of character or even skepticism, if they're a hardcore skeptic, sure they can be a little bit unable to defend against things, but their hardline skepticism is a form of magic too. And if you have a very strong sense of your own power, then a direct attack is usually going to fail. It just is. Now, that doesn't mean demons can't get you. It doesn't mean the gods can't get you. But it means a direct attack from another sorcerer is probably just going to be, you're going to stub your toe or something. It's not going to have any real effect. Now, that's why, and I don't want to jump the gun too much, but I do want to mention that the most vital way to attack in magic, especially against someone who knows what they're doing, is to never attack them directly. You always want to undermine their confidence. You want to undermine their sense of their ability to defend against things. So a lot of it's psychological, man, and that's a big piece of it. That's why this jewelry and the outfits is so important. You can empower your ability to say, "Fuck you, you can't touch me." It's like packing a gun. You just feel like a badass, right? Similar idea.
Yeah. One of the coolest things. We're going to try to keep this in order. First things first, we'll go over the protection
Yep.
aspect, and then we're going to go into how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a subject that everybody's like, oh, curse your enemies and blah blah blah, and so forth and so on. But there are a lot of people that can't afford the $250 to pay somebody to do a spell work for them and stuff like
Yep.
that. So let's say you're just a normal person. Well, not normal, because if you're magical, you ain't normal. Be thankful for that. But if you're one of those that are trying to figure out, how can I really protect myself or do things for myself, part of the reason why I do these videos like I do is to, put the fire in the hands of man.
Mm-hmm.
So, I am a huge fan of that. I really am. You empower people, and it follows suit with that whole, give a man a fish, he'll eat. Teach a man to fish, he'll never go hungry.
Well, not only that, but think about it this way. Why it's going to go. I'm not going to go too far around in a circle, but why do a lot of entities help us? Why do they empower us? Because they want a strong ally for the future in their own right. So when we're helping other people grow and get their abilities in line, even if it's just because they are using our symbols and methods, they're empowering us in return. When you write a magical book for somebody, you write a grimoire and you share it, you're creating you're empowering your work because now other people are using it. And in the same mode, if you are helping people with their own magic in some other way by videos and this other stuff, that little bit is going to empower you that much more, both in defense, offense, everything. So what you're doing, you're building allies and you're building spiritual allies, because everybody who's watching these videos and liking your content, they're putting out good vibes to you, aren't they? And those good vibes are shielding the hell out of you, whether you accept it or not. They are, it's unavoidable, because everybody, look at all the people who are concerned about your surgery. You know what I'm saying? And everybody's sending you this positive energy and these thoughts. So you can't knock that little piece of that is so important. Especially for people who are in the public eye. You got to be in the public eye, and you've got to get your supporters and your friends to like you. It's real important.
Yeah, that's why I'm making a point, whether here, Facebook, messaging, text, or whatever, let people know how much, they are appreciated, because, this brings me to the very next part, and this is a very important aspect of all of it, and it probably should have been brought out first. So let's think of magic as a well, and we all drink from the same fucking well. I don't give a fuck what your path is. If you're magical, we all drink from we are all pulling from the exact same source. And so when a magical person attacks a magical person, they're poisoning the well.
That's true.
And then that is the greatest form of disrespect. Now, when is it not disrespect? Is when you're being attacked and you have to defend yourself. And then then you're not poisoning the well. You're trying to rectify the situation. And in these cases, that's not really what's happening. But we're going to try and stay on point with this. But I
like to put it like this. Occultists live in glass houses by nature. Everything we do is seen as strange, bad, or wrong by most of society. We open ourselves up to some interesting currents of, fate and reality. And we make interesting enemies who can do interesting things. But what I will also say is the vast majority of people who could curse you and hurt you, they have to have a damn good reason to do it, or else they're not going to do it. Just like you said, they don't want to poison the well. They don't want to build bad blood, because every spirit that you're friends with now may be looking to cause havoc for them in return. Don't forget that either. So usually I've noticed that it's only the novices, only the people who are starting out, and the people with really, we'll say, unaligned emotional, psychological, spiritual presences, people who just they're not all there. They're not fully manifest yet.
Anger management issues.
They have anger management issues, whatever you want to yeah, that's a good one. These people I consider weak, because if they feel the need to curse people just because they posted something they didn't like online, or because of some other nonsense that's not that important, they're just wasting their energy. First of all, that's not their true intent. Their true intent is, magic always follows your true intent and your true will, not what your ego tells you it wants. So they're usually wasting their time. And the person who has any significant power is just going to laugh it off, because that's actually a very strong form of defense. You laugh at the dark spirits. You laugh at the things that seek to harm you. And yeah, sometimes you might laugh in vain, but if you do die laughing, trust me, the spirits that are there are going to be, they're going to welcome you with open arms and laugh with you. They're going to think you're brave, and they're going to be impressed. Not to bring up too many other people, but there's a gentleman named Frank White, which I have a lot of respect for. And he did a video not that long ago about magical defense. And one of the things he said in this was he was mocking the people trying to curse him. And what most of the people watching that video didn't realize was, by mocking those people that were trying to curse him, he was actually building up a very strong wall of authority, because he was taking his authority out and using it to say, no, I am the sorcerer. You can't fuck with me. So it's very interesting. This is why it's a very broad topic. Magic is never just a mechanical thing of, do this, do that, get this, get that. It's a very big psychological, emotional, spiritual thing that if you're only accessing one part of it, if your idea of magical defense is just to pull out some crystals and line them up around your bed or something, oh well.
Before we go off too far, let's go back to the armor.
Yep.
So on just a mundane, just on a practical level, mundane, practical, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so you got the head and you've got the chest and the arms covered. You can imagine pants as being like a suit of armor as well, greaves, stuff like that. Socks, shoes, the exact same way. The importance behind this, and it can seem stupid and silly to you, but it's very, very true. So the human anatomy, the male or female reproductive organ, is actually a physical symbolism of the core or center of one's powerful of one's source of creation. Okay, uh, hence procreation being something that you bring into life and so forth and so on. And so, like, and I hate to say this, but like in the Bible where it says, gird yourself,
Yeah,
and that's what they're talking about. You know, you have to even protect that aspect of self. Not like with a chastity belt or anything, but you get the drift of how this works. So the more that you can think of everything that is mundane that you totally overlook, like everything from your clothes to just to colors and symbols that you surround yourself with, like wall decoration, stuff like that. That fortifies your home.
sure.
Okay, and
It
so
goes back to the ancient practices, the cave paintings and all decorations and the gargoyles and all that stuff. Absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely something there. I like to think of it, for me, I'm as an artistic kind of guy, as an eccentric kind of guy. For me, just wearing a hat wouldn't be enough. I have to wear my hood. I have to wear my one glove with the spikes on it. I have to wear my death ring. I have to, all this stuff. But it's absolutely true, man. Look at the cultures, going back throughout history. There's always something, a fetish of some kind that is worn, whether it be jewelry or clothing that's mundane that has significance to it. And you're absolutely right about that.
yeah, I used to like my left ear is pierced. I have uh, a loop earring that I wear every now and then, and it's for protecting my hearing, that I may hear in
Right.
spirit, that I may be able to discern through sound, messages that are coming through, so forth and so on. Yeah, it just depends on what you can make anything magical. When everything that is mundane, that is just considered, your everyday normal life, if you can start looking at every little action and everything that you do as being magical, you're further empowering and protecting yourself. You're covering yourself in this. You
Well,
know,
it goes back to like, ancient Egypt with the eye makeup. A lot of people don't know that the eye makeup was defensive as well. It had many purposes. And, it wasn't just to block the rays of the sun or whatever, so that they didn't get quite so bad sunblind in the desert. They believed that the material it was made out of actually reflected back the negative spirits and the negative intentions of others, with the eyeshadow and the eyeliner and everything that they would wear. And it was made out of, I forget what the chemical is or whatever it is. It's got lead in it. So you can still get it, but it was considered a highly magical substance to those people and many cultures afterwards. I believe the Greeks and everybody else. So they would paint their eyes with this to ward off any kind of attempt to attack them spiritually.
yeah,
So makeup, tattoos, man, tatoas. I mean, come on. You want to talk about a magical piece of protection. Go to the cultures where tattooing was used. The what is it? The Samoan cultures, I think it was, or whatever it is. The maybe somebody down the Maori or whoever it is. Their tattoos are, some of them are just like really, really frightening. They have these powerful gods on their bodies. And it's not just to show their devotion. It's to say, you know, all I have to do is touch this tattoo and call upon my higher entity to protect me, and they'll be there.
going on that right there, the Teutons
Mm-hmm.
covered their
They
body
did. Yep.
tattoos head to foot.
And the Norse, all the Vikings and everything.
Yeah, but the Teutons were that was the particular tribe or group of people that were known for what I'm referring to as uh, they every single one of them had their own way of doing this. It's why later on in Magic, when they would say have this embroidered on your clothes or anything like that. And I didn't have anything like that. I'd take a marker and I'd mark it on my arms or wherever. And the trick isn't just it isn't the physical symbolism of it being there. You have to literally, no matter what you're doing in magic, you have to stop for just 1 second and think you're not just doing it on this plane. You have to project yourself mentally to the astral plane within your inner temple or wherever sacred space you've created. And you want to see yourself on the astral plane. And even if you don't have a sacred place or anything like that, imagine the room or the space that you're in exists on a higher vibrational plane and project there. And that way, when you're drawing it, you're literally seeing the lines of power.
Absolutely. In fact, it's kind of ironic because my latest video that I just put up about 5 minutes ago is just starting to skim that subject, because in my book, what you just said is a big deal. You might remember from our last conversation, I said not many grimoires talk about how to properly empower your symbols and how to use them correctly. You know, it's not just drawing a symbol. You have to push energy into it, man. Emotional energy, spiritual energy, astral. You have to be able to see this in another world. Just like you said, you can't just draw it on your arm. You've got to, you shouldn't even necessarily need a pen. You should be able, although I'm going to say you do use a pen because you need a physical component. Everything has to be holistic. But theoretically, you don't even need a pen. You can just scratch the surface of your arm. You're causing a physical change. And you push your energy into that scratching. If you're using that method, that should work for you. If you are in tune, if you're well aligned, if you're resonating with the right frequency of protection or the spirit that you're calling on, hell yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. Now, to go further with this and to explain this, you'll notice in a lot of magical books and stuff, mostly in low magic, where they're describing, the casting of the magical circle. Even in high magic, when they're talking about, tracing the pentagram in the air and vibrating the name of God in it and all this other stuff. They want you to visualize a certain color and so forth and so on. Now, what they're doing is they're getting you to, on this plane, get used to casting energy like that so that you can mentally see it.
Yep.
So that it bypasses the whole having to go to the astral plane to do it. But for those who are really, really new to combining them, like I said, just take a minute or two and imagine that the space or room or whatever that you're in at that moment, about to start doing your workings or tracing on yourself or whatever, imagine that you're on a higher plane that looks exactly like the one you're on. Just know that it's different. This is the astral realm. So forth and so on. This, like I said, this allows you to tap into the deeper recesses of the psyche and to unlock more power from yourself. Because we like to think in magic that we get our power from this and we get our power from that. The power is within us, but we use these as gateways, as channels to be able to unlock it and pull it out of ourselves to bring it about into being. And that's just for those who may not know that.
A healthy way to look at things, and I know you love this because you're like a gate person, you're a gatekeeper type of person. Almost everything could be viewed as a kind of gate. Almost everything as a kind of gate, because you're basically, especially magical tools, any kind of magical tool or symbol is like a gateway. And speaking of magical defense, some of those gateways, like your scrying mirrors, your scrying balls, you need to protect them, because when you have an open gateway like that, it goes both ways, man. Yeah. And your scry ball, your scrying mirror, your even your scrying bowl, whatever you're using, even your tarot cards really should be, if you're new to this and you don't have it wrapped in silk or velvet, and you don't have that silk or velvet, fumigated with sage and all this other stuff, you're kind of asking for a potential, problem in it. You have an open doorway basically into your magical space.
And, for example, a lot of times I don't have the right kind of cloth or the right kind of material. I at least put them in a box. And
at least put them inside. Yeah, right.
Something that can be closed and sealed off.
Yeah, or even if it's just basic cloth, black preferably, or dark set, it's dark blue, dark colors are best. But velvet, silk, really, the reason that's important symbolically is because, velvet's hard to see through. Velvet's just hard to see through. It scatters light really well. If you ever look at velvet, reason it looks the way it does partially is because the fibers are pointing up at you, and it's absorbing the light rays a certain way. It's a very unique fabric, and silk is just very strong and special and valuable. But you can also put it in certain kinds of wood, like holy wood boxes, the right kind of wood. I forget personally. I think it would be maybe willow. There's a couple different woods, sandalwood, or anything you use for incense. Cedar, yeah, cedar, stuff like that. You put your objects in those kind of boxes, whether they're lined in something or not. Salt, you use salt. You can bury things in salt. That will usually protect them as well. You don't need a lot of salt, just enough to, they basically absorb any negative energies that are around them. So there's a lot of different correspondences people can use. And of course, there's incense. You can fumigate. You can do all that kind of stuff.
One of the things that I've hinted at over the last 2 years and in certain of my videos and certain conversations with people, and it's something I pretty much keep to myself, but I want to share it. I want to put it out there. And it was the reason why I decided I would wear the hat tonight and would use it as an example. Yeah, imagine that the crown chakra, this is your spiritual authority. That's just all there is to it. That is your right to power, your right to defend, your right to it. It is your Godhead,
right,
so to speak. And what they call anything that goes over that goes over the crown, they call it a covering.
Yep.
That's why they in the ancient of days, and you'll forgive me if I couldn't tell you how many thousands of years, because there's nobody around that can tell you exactly. But the thing about it is,
in the before time,
right? The way this worked is that you would undergo a period of cleansing, purification, so forth and so on. And during this period, you would cleanse the crown and you would cover it.
Or anoint it with oil, things like that.
Yep. Yeah, things like anything to keep it covered is a form of covering. Like you were saying with the oil. That's perfect, brother. I appreciate you throwing that out there.
Yeah, a lot of people don't remember that because they're not Christian or something. They don't know anointing the head in oil wasn't just to bless you. That was a protection, and that was also to empower your spiritual entry point. Your holy spot, so to speak. Look at the priests of the olden times. What did they do? They would have the little ring of hair and the little bald spot, so they could anoint their head with oil and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and a lot of people didn't know that about the medieval church. The way the monks and the friars would do, they didn't. The people don't put two and two together because it's not common knowledge.
It's just intuitive for me, man. Nobody told me.
Yeah, I know, right? Same here. But allow me to wax older than that and go to to an older time of covering the head in ash.
Oh yeah, ash in particular.
All right, fucking love this next part I'm about to break out.
I've never used that, but I know what you're talking. Go ahead.
I hope that by sharing this knowledge, this wisdom, this stuff that you're just not going to find in books, I'm hoping that somebody will take it and run with it, and that their own intuition will guide them, that their own daemon just walks them through it. Because sometimes it's just a matter of hearing it one time, and then one's own inner divine intelligence.
Let it inspire you guys. Let it inspire you. Everything we're talking about.
Damn right. That's what it's supposed to do, and that's what we're here for. So the covering the head in the ash was a funerary thing. So when a person, so like let's say for example, a city was ransacked and overran, and people were killed, murdered, raped, all this other stuff, and ruled over by an invading army or something. The survivors from the ashes of fires that had destroyed would literally take the ashes and cover their face and their head with it.
Correct. Yep.
Showing their anger, their sorrow. It was they poured all their emotion into this ash, which was just remnants of what was.
And they would also connect with their spirits that way. They would connect with the spirits of the dead.
Yep.
Of the whole works. It was very holistic in that sense.
And that's why today in certain practices, that's why ash is used for working with the dead, for working with certain earth spirits. And earth spirits are not necessarily of the element earth and not necessarily of the dead, but spirits of the denser planes.
Right.
Uh,
That's
I'm
another subject for another time. What are ghosts?
yeah, right. Also, something very, very interesting for anybody who's interested in this. You can take ash, what you do is you take a piece of paper, parchment if you've got it, and what you do is you would draw a seal or symbol that represented either the dead or whatever realm, plane that spirit type that you're trying to work with, whether it be angels, demons, whatever, it doesn't matter. But the thing is to take the different classifications, take a seal or sigil that represents them. Take your parchment paper, consecrate it in the name of your spirits or your gods, in the name of yourself, so forth, and draw this on it. Uh, you can either mix a small thing with water mixed with a drop or two of your blood, or you can just put blood on it. It doesn't really matter how you do it, but water needs to be mixed in with it because you're sprinkling it. You're doing what they call asperging, and you do this on the parchment, the paper. You then would go and create a sacred fire or flame. Usually, you can use rubbing alcohol mixed with what is that salt? Epsom salt, and you can make what they call shaman's fire or witch's fire. It's a blue flame. It's really cool. And when you
talking about black salt too, when you mix ashes with any salt, you're making black salt, which is
exactly,
yeah.
and then you go and you set the parchment on fire, hold it over a dish or a plate, and let the ashes fall into it. When it's done, you now have charged ash to cover yourself with, to make markings on items, walls, floors, whatever. But this is how you do this. And you can cover yourself, like let's say, for example, you were working with the dead and you use the symbol of the underworld itself. Okay, whether it's the pit, whether you're using that left-hand version, whether you're using the underworld of the Sumerians or whatever underworld thing, you can even be talking to the dead itself. Okay, like I said, it doesn't matter what system you're working from, and you draw a symbol that represents the underworld of the dead. You go through this process, use the ash, you can cover it on yourself. Then, when you're in ritual and you're going to enter into the underworld, this allows you to pass as one of them. This is so they do not recognize you as the living. Because, like, for example, in the Simon Necronomicon, when you're passing into the underworld, to do it one time in the form of, the descent of Anana, this is a form of initiation. However, the curse is at the end of that walking where it tells you that, it has been warned that if the dead enter, that the dead shall rise and devour the living. This doesn't necessarily mean they're going to rise up and kill everybody. It's not like that. I'm not going to go into that aspect of it. But the reason why that's there is to remind you that you have to enter the underworld as one of the underworld denizens, aka the dead. And a lot of people don't know this. Okay, this is how you protect yourself from the dead, from like the hungry dead. Like, for example, you get poltergeists, you get these really weird ancestors live too near to a graveyard where the spirits are restless and just causing havoc. Make you an underworld seal on some parchment, do your fire, make your ash, cover yourself, and mark your doorway as a symbol of the underworld. That literally makes them bypass your home because they think that it's part of the underworld.
Yep. I would also like to mention that, for certain things, animals help. Pets, certain kinds of animals, they like dogs, all right? Almost every situation I've been in with supernatural entities, dogs are just great at both appeasing certain spirits, frightening off others, and being an early warning system for spiritual activity because they can feel things that most mundane people can't. Some of us can feel it too. Some of us are just as sensitive. But animals in particular, they can create a lot of spiritual blessing in your home. There's a lot of reasons why, like things like spiders and things like that, you're not supposed to kill them. It's not just because they're good to keep the bugs out. These things also, uh, the more natural your home, the more living energy is in your home, the more vibrant your energy system is, the more healthy it is with a living ecosystem of some kind. That makes a much harder place for negative spirits to invade. I'll tell you from experience, we had a really wicked poltergeist in my house for a few years when we moved in. And it just kept continuing, and it was doing some crazy stuff. Stuff was flying out of the kitchen shelves. And we don't,
Your dog, you were having problems with your dog noticing something in the corner?
no, as soon as we got my dog, it stopped, like
Oh.
to the day. And I think it was because whether it was because of the dog or just the spiritual peace that the dog brought, that extra joy that the dog brought, it settled the spirit down, and it has never returned after that. It was very, like I said, things were flying, like literally flying off of shelves, like across the room. It was crazy.
Yeah, well, I remember you talking about that. Allow me to throw a little something out there you may or may not know. Uh, okay, so let's take, for example, animals, like you talking about. Okay, despite the fact that uh, Constantine is like my favorite character of all, as far as an archetype, sorcerer type, free willed magician. Where in the movie he was showing, holding a cat to walk between hell and earth, right? You remember that?
I didn't really watch that one. I'm familiar with it a little bit, but go on.
Okay, well, check this. Cats are natural between the worlds, but they're not between the earth and the underworld, the earth and the heaven. They are between the worlds and what they call the Fey realm. And I know that when I say Fey realm, first thing that's going to happen is people are going to be thinking fairies
Right.
and dwarves and unicorns and all that. And yes, that may be an aspect of it, but Fey, literally, you have to have a much wider range of knowledge concerning what Fey is, because Fey also includes the weird. And
Yeah.
weird is not WEIRD, it's
It's why.
WYRD, and it represents the fate or the line of one's soul.
Yep.
Which then that goes into the three Norns, Erd, Verdandi, and Skull, which represents death, life, rebirth. And that's neither here nor there. But the thing is that so cats literally represent, they're constantly between the realms. That's why they make really, really, really good familiars. If you're into witchcraft, to make good familiars, they're just good. They're good animals to have in general because what do you call them? Benevolent spirits attached to them quite easily, as opposed to malevolent. Uh, and that can be for a lot of reasons. That could be because in ancient Egypt, cats were covered under Bast or Sekhmet, and Bast and Sekhmet used to be one being, not two. It then got divided, and that's neither here nor there. It was just it covered the feline aspect, and that's a whole other cookie jar. But I say all this to point out the fact that they're a sacred animal.
I was just going to say that in the spirit realm, all animals are sacred. There's a reason why, animals and children. All right, animals and children. What did you always sacrifice? Animals and children and virgins, because not because they like to see the animals suffer or anything, but because people knew that these beings were sacred to the spirit world in some fashion. All animals, in my opinion, in my workings with demons and other entities and things, the darkest entity you can imagine would just as soon cuddle up to a snake or a dog as it would do anything evil, dark, or scary. There's a tone there that, in the movies we always see, like, oh, the first thing to go is the dog, and the dog is always scared of everything. Yeah, the dog might be scared of it. That's true, because not all spirits are polite. Some are malevolent. But even then, they know better. Something about animals are sacred to every entity I've ever encountered. They have always, I can't put it into better words than just to say they're sacred. They are not to be trifled. Animals are very useful as companions to any magician. If I met a magician or a sorcerer who says, I don't like animals, I go, well, yeah, okay.
Uh,
I'm not as impressed.
one of the but the thing that I was telling you that you may not be aware of is, did you know that dogs were actually the original underworld animal?
Yeah. Yeah.
And the reason why is because wild dogs, whether being hyenas, jackals, just wild dogs, whatever, they
Hyenas
were
and cats.
roaming graveyards. And the reason why is because, the bodies were buried shallow, they would dig up and eat the flesh, the bones, whatever like this. Now, this gave rise to the whole concept of Anubis being god of the underworld at the time that Anubis was considered that particular deity of the underworld. Uh, and so, in that sense, dogs would also warn off other would-be predator types.
Sure. Well, they also chose us because of our civilization. Dogs are evolving from wild, canines, wolves typically. They would live on the fringes of human society, and they just evolved along with us over a very short period of time. Unlike humans, it might take millions and millions of years. They only took a few thousand years comparatively to breed into the species that was closer to what we have today. And what you find is that if you want to examine this from a spiritual perspective, they didn't just choose us because we had food and everything. We have a kindred quality between us that I will always be a big fan of dogs for a reason, because dogs are a lot more like people than we give them credit for, in a lot of ways. They're still very different, but they have a very similar spiritual vibration on a lot of levels. The dog is mankind's best friend. It just is. We're talking about animals too much. We should get back to the topic.
Well, no. The reason why we brought all this up, and it's not actually leaving the subject at all. We're talking about magical attacks, and we're under the protection aspect of it.
Yep.
And so this is covered by it. I also know this right here. Like, let's say, for example, let's take wild animals. Okay, like you go outside and there's a bird in the yard, right? You can always tell when you're out of balance by how an animal reacts to your presence.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I can literally step out my back door and there can be a bird right there. Well, if I'm in the right vibration or whatever, so forth and so on, most of the time the birds out back pay me no attention, like, at all. They're like, yeah, okay, fat boy gonna sit up there and smoke. We're gonna sit here and keep looking for worms. And they do their thing and I do mine. It's a symbiotic relationship. We all share space. That's neither here nor there. But the point being is that, animals themselves, their sensitivity will let you know if something is roaming about, whether it be spirit or mayhem.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, it is covered.
I'm gonna take a 2-second break because I think he's getting a little chill. He needs to get under his heat, get in his heating area. But why don't you answer a few questions or something? I'll be right back. It won't take me long.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'll tell you guys maybe the story about. Maybe I won't tell you a story, but we'll move on to the next topic. Give me 1 second.
But yeah, so if anybody has any questions, put them up there. Logan, I tried to answer your question there, man, about the fire. You could take a candle and light it, as long as the candle has been consecrated and charged with intent towards a deity or a force or a power. It can be considered a magical fire. But usually in ritual, if you're really trying to go all out with it and you're trying to make magical materials or items, trust me when I say you want to build your magical fire. And you can look up different resources on that. But yeah, the sensitivity of animals is like they're straight up, they're just what do you call it, instinctual creatures. So like sound, sights, movement, stuff like that automatically catches their attention. But the very first thing that they pick up on is energy. It's kind of like a fish in the water gives off electrical signals out through the side of it. That's how it knows when larger predators are coming in and to move out of its way. All animals have this. All humans have this as well. We're just not normally tuned into ourselves well enough. But the more you become sensitive to your own energies and
All
so
right, he's
on
back.
and so on, uh, the type of salt is Epsom salt. Uh, you don't want to use much. Like, let's say you're using a shot glass of rubbing alcohol because you're just going to make a quick, witch's fire. Uh, use a shot glass of rubbing alcohol, usually 70-90% proof, and at least a teaspoon of Epsom salt. And just plain Epsom salt, though. But anyway, back to the sensitivity thing. We have the exact same thing. The idea is to become aware of not just our minds and what we're thinking, not just our emotions and what state of being we're in, not just whether it's sexually aroused, stuff like that, because a lot of people know when they're turned on and so forth and so on. But there are so many different levels of awareness, and that all in all is what protection against magical attacks and things like this. That's what it's all about. Because when someone's attacking you, first off, they're stripping you down, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So, brother.
Uh-oh. You went mute there for a second, buddy.
No, I saw it. I hollered at you. You said you had something you were going to share.
No, I was just letting you talk, and then you just like kind of like, I don't know, maybe I zoned out. I was reading the comments, to be honest with you.
Oh, you're welcome, Logan.
Welcome back to me. Hi, everybody. Did you guys like Snack? Just curious. Did you guys like Snack? Is he like having like a naked chick in the audience? You know, like is he hot? But seriously, was he cool? When where did you leave off? Because I think I might broach a different part of the subject of
talking
defense.
about how animals aren't the only one with a natural sensitivity.
Yeah. Oh no, people definitely can.
People have it too.
Yeah, I mean, coming from someone, my greatest, I would say, psychic gift, besides just being a good sorcerer or whatever, is empathy. I can usually read people very well, like a book through. I can't read your mind, but I can read your intentions and your emotions very easily, and it allows me to manipulate and charm and be just a nice guy and be a total bastard in the back of my head if I want to be.
So you're being a fake motherfucker. I knew it.
I'm always fake. You're fake too, man. You're all. I just had this conversation with one of the guys that's watching this right now. We were just having this conversation before. I'm fake as shit, brother.
With you.
No. It's actually it's not even something to be ashamed of. We're all fake. Everything we do is an act. Everything we do is some sort of an act and a performance. So there's nothing to be ashamed of. It's just you have to make sure your performance is what's the word? Authentic. Is your performance authentic or not? If it's an authentic, what's that?
Make sure it's worthy.
Make sure it's worthy, but make sure it's authentic. Because if you're not true to yourself, it doesn't matter what you do externally. If you're true to yourself internally, you can do whatever you want externally. If you know why you're doing something, it's quite all right, is my opinion. A lot of people they're not in touch with their true self, and that's an important part of defense. If you're not truthful with yourself, if you're not aware of yourself on that level, if you don't know what your strengths and your weakness and your true interests and intents are, if you're lying to yourself, if you're saying, "Oh, I want to just be a better person," boo hoo hoo, that's a weakness. If you have to be able to embrace your dark side, your flaws, as well as what you're good at, because if you don't embrace your flaws, your enemies will. Okay, that's probably one of the biggest things I can ever tell somebody is if you don't embrace your flaws, your enemies will, and that's a very important thing.
I tell you what, man. A lot of the conversations that I've had with you in private and on here and so forth, so on, dude, I swear you remind me of what I gained and learned through walking the Luciferian path with the being so brutally fucking honest with yourself that it fucking hurts. Mm-hmm. And it's like a while ago, I said, and make sure it's worthy. Here's what I mean by that. If I'm going to sit there and I'm going to listen to somebody, it better be worth the fucking amount of energy in life that I just spent listening or watching it.
That's true.
And that's what I mean by that.
That's what I consider nobility.
Oh, well.
So if I say you're a noble person, if I say you're a noble soul, that means you're worth my time. If I say that you're mundane and boring, it's almost like the Order of the Nine Angles stuff. it's very important. I'm not part of that. That's not my current, but the bit of it that I'm familiar with, I have a lot of respect for in certain areas, because especially their idea of nobility and being noble towards one another. You can be a lot of things so long as you're noble about it. Nobility has a certain character about it, and it actually is very important for defense as well. If you're a noble soul, let's put it this way. Let's say you decided you didn't like me today, Waylon. Let's say you decided you didn't like me, and you decided you don't like me now. You're gonna sick all of your dark forces on me, all your spirits against me. Okay. If I'm a noble soul and I have made good relations with my spirits as a noble being, and maybe some of yours, okay, why would they side against me to favor you necessarily? Now, some will. Some are very mercenary. Some will be like, who's going to pay me more? Especially certain jinn that you and I both are aware of through S. Ben Kane's work. But they're not going to also stab you in the back necessarily. So if you're a noble soul and your intentions are always noble in some way, I don't mean good. Get this idea of good and evil out of your head. If it's noble and true to yourself and authentic, and as you said, has value, you're going to be, I don't want to say untouchable. Nobody's untouchable, but you've already got an ace up your sleeve.
I like the way you word that, because, that's why I love having conversations with you, because you make me look at it in a whole new light. It's not because I have an imbalanced ego, but I don't think of myself more than what I think of myself. And, I am this, walking around that people see.
You can be proud of what's true, You can be proud of what's true.
Deep inside, I'm a beast of my own making. I have my own shortcomings and strengths and weaknesses and all that, this, that, and the other. I embrace every damn single one of them. I'm right out in the fucking open with them, because part of the magical self-defense. Okay, so like, let's say for example, like I walk with a limp. Okay, I've walked with a limp since I was a kid. I've been made fun of. I've gotten into more fucking fights than I can count. People call me gimp, me kicking their fucking ass. Well, as I got older, I went to realizing something. I'm giving away my power, even reacting to that shit.
Correct. That's right. 100%.
And so then later on, I learned to laugh at that shit. First off, I can't help the way I fucking walk. I'm not the one that chose that. Life and gravity chose that. Second off, why not embrace it? Because it gave me an element of strength.
That's right. I was just going to say, without that ingredient, what would you be? You wouldn't be. All right, let's take a Conan reference. I love Conan. The original movie Conan is one of my favorite movies of all time, especially right up the end. I'm going to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it, because if you haven't seen it by now, you need to go out of your rock and find it. But at the very end, Conan confronts Thulsa Doom, and he says, what would you be if not for me, basically? Without me destroying your life, what would you be? And Conan's like totally shook by this. His mind is blown. And he even has to admit to himself on some level that he's right. Without Thulsa Doom to ruin his life, to kill his family, and all this other nonsense, he wouldn't be this big, powerful, noble leader of men, or whatever he becomes. And it's just like your hip. It's just like my weight or other people's things. Without these things that give us these, when somebody has it easy, they're weak in every case. It's almost like that movie Glass. I use a lot of movie references. It's almost like the movie Glass and Split. The broken, broken people, when they're not fully broken, you know what I'm saying? When they put themselves back together, when they overcome, they're the strongest thing in the world. When you have, in ninjutsu, you have the symbol, the nin symbol, with the little, I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's basically a heart under a blade. And the idea is actually the word for perseverance. It's actually the concept of perseverance. What makes a ninja strong in the historical sense was they were able to persevere the hardships, and all the things that they would go through. So there's all these things that people have to remember. Don't be afraid to get knocked down. Don't be afraid to lose. It's happened to me. It actually happened to me recently. I had a blow to my ego, and it sucked a couple of years ago. And the only way I got through it, you can either fight it or you can hide from it. It took me a little while, but I had to realize that the reason it happened, the reason that I had this moment of just such weakness and failure, was not because I'm weak or anything like that. It was because I was following the wrong path. I was doing the wrong thing. I was attached to the wrong thing. And the universe just bitch slapped me into the right direction again. So, when people do magic to try to avoid hardship, sometimes that's a mistake. Not always. Sometimes the whole point is to do magic to get over it. But this includes defense. Sometimes, sometimes you lose a fight so that you can win the next one. I mean, when I was in martial arts, that was a saying we had on the wall. Sometimes you lose a fight so you can win the next one. And it's a very important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah. It's like, for example, not because I'm a good guy or anything like that, but it's
You're
like,
sorry.
for example, I see people that are way off worse than I am. I may not feel pity for them. And the reason I don't isn't for the reasons you would think. It's because, first off, they don't need my pity.
No.
They don't want my fucking pity. Okay? And so I don't give it. I don't offer it.
I'm not much on pity either. I mean, I can be very sympathetic on occasion, but I follow you 100%.
I was about to go, but what I do have is sympathy.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I look at myself and, yeah, lack of mobility, I'm gaining weight. I don't care for that. You know what I'm saying? And I know that in the long run that it'll go, that I'll lose weight and all this, that, and the other. I mean, I already know that. So there's no reason for me to put myself down. But I also, at the same time, I don't sit and dwell on this shit.
Mm-mm.
And part of magical protection, and this keeps in with this, you yourself, and not you, Thorne, and not, individually people here, but just in a general term of you, the viewer, the people out there, you got to remember one thing. Your greatest defense is always going to be your self-image. You've got to come to terms with it. You've got to embrace the fuck out of it, no matter how painful it is, no matter how much you like it, don't like it. And you've got to own that shit.
You got to own it, and you have to, like I'm reading the comments and everything, and so I'm a little distracted, but you got to own it, and you have to be able to not be ashamed of it at the same time. So if you do have a weakness and a flaw, okay, you need to embrace it, and you need to accept it, and you need to accept that you can potentially change it. But if you can't, you need to figure out how to make yourself stronger through it, and not. Let's put it this way. Let's say I'm your enemy, right? What might I attack about you? I might, if I can't attack you directly, if I can't attack you directly, right? Let's say I can't attack you personally. Let's say you're too well protected with your spiritual power. I might go after your doctor, who's going to be doing your next surgeries. Okay. And one of the things people don't realize about attack. Now, I'm a martial artist on the side. I'm not as in the shape I used to be, but I'm a martial artist on the side. I work with HEMA. I do a lot of stuff with weapons, firearms, everything like that. So I'm very much in tune with the martial current on how to beat somebody, like all the way, not just physically, but the rest of the way. And one of the most important things you can do, and I'm saying this as part of defense, because if you're defending yourself, you have to be aware of this. A skilled attacker is never going to come at you directly. They're going to blindside you, and they're going to come after things you're not protecting that are still going to screw you up. A lot of people think of magic as I'm going to curse this person and they're going to suffer bad experiences. And what are those bad experiences really? Those bad experiences could be curses on other people, and those curses could be influencing something else as well. If I can't get you directly and have you have a trip and fall, or have a spirit make you sick, or whatever it is, again, I might attack your doctor. I might attack your job. I might curse your workplace so that it goes under and you have to find a new job. There's all these different avenues that you can attack somebody. And if you're trying to defend yourself, now you've got a situation where there are ways to defend against that, but you have to be aware that that's a possibility sometimes, unless your spirits are helping you. It becomes almost like the little Dutch boy in the dam, like sticking his finger in all these holes. You can't protect everybody. You can't protect everything you do, and you're going to go crazy if you try. That's another avenue of attack as well. A good attacker is going to attack everything about you on all fronts, so that you have a failure here, there, everywhere. Bad luck's going to happen to you here, there, everywhere, and you're going to start your confidence is going to be destroyed. I don't know anybody that can't have their confidence tested by bad events. Okay, especially in Magic, because Magic requires quite a lot of mental gymnastics to believe in it in this modern age. When you have all these people trying to disprove it and they come up with good points and everything else, sometimes all it takes is, I did a spell and it didn't work, and it can make you hesitate. It can make you think twice. And if you have an enemy who's cursing you and you're doing your protection rituals and all this other stuff, and you can't get a handle on it, even if they just make your pet sick, even if they, like I said, curse your job, your confidence is going to be blown. Now, the way to deal with that, obviously, is number one, you have to be psychically powerful enough so that your aura extends, your aura of protection extends to everything in your life. You have to become aware that attacks can happen indirectly, and then you can work to stop them. But it also involves, in my personal opinion, because I work with a lot of spirits, working with certain entities like Malphus is one of my personal favorites, who's one of the Goetic demons, because he's like the demon, the god of the watchtowers of he's a crow spirit that is very big on watchtowers. All right. Watchtowers are a great early warning system, great for defense. One of the better defensive entities that you can work with. He's actually gotten more powerful in recent history because things like Castlevania have used him in their video games and stuff, and it gets people interested in him. That's how these spirits get powerful, is by being more known to the world. So some of these spirits, when you call upon them, they can be very powerful protective spirits in your life. You don't have to sit awake all night worrying, is someone going to hex me? You can just go, I got a good relationship with my spirits. They're going to watch out for me, and it's never going to be that bad. As you know from interacting with me, I have protection around me that I don't hide, because not right now. I don't hide, but come on, go ahead.
Yeah, fuck that, dude.
Open the door and there's a cannon facing your face. You know what I mean? It's
you sit there and you're like, and I was like, I thought about jumping in, and just, astral projecting. You're like, yeah, you can do that, blah, blah, blah. Just, gave me instructions. As soon as I got there, man, just all of a sudden, like, surrounding you is like this flashing sword. And I'm like, what the fuck? And it's interesting how these things manifest. It is so interesting how these things manifest. Strong make for strong defense. They do.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important, like in this community and just what we're doing here at the Black Tower and so forth and so on, and in general, with networking with these different groups and different people, that's what it's about. Is it's a strength in numbers, not because we're weak.
Mm-hmm.
Hell no, but because dude, come on.
And don't forget what I said before. The more people use your methods, or the more people respect your methods, the more real it becomes. Think about that. I mean, it's one of the things that a spirit revealed to me was, write a book, because when people start using your methods are going to get more powerful. It's just a fact. And this works for defense as well. When you are working with a group of people and you have mutual protection and you both believe in each other's protection, you believe in my protection. That could have been an illusion, that sword you saw. Okay. You might have seen an illusion, but because you believe in that, okay, it just bolstered my defense, didn't it? Yeah. So it's all a mind game in a way, And
when I sit here and I talk about it here, other people, first thing that happens subconsciously, they think you're surrounded by a sword.
That sword, they could make it themselves, because they arrive here and they make the sword.
People, you can literally, it's one of the side tricks, is convincing people.
You have to convince your opponent.
And convincing doesn't mean that you have to, pull out the big guns and try to be all intimidating and shit. No. Sometimes it's just a matter of just dropping, I have such and such surrounds me. Okay. It works like that, though.
Especially like if you look in the third world countries, like the less educated magicians and stuff. And I'm not saying this as a diss, I'm saying that as a proof of concept. A lot of the times they just have to tell the people around them, I'm protected by the powerful spirits. And what happens? People just keep a wide berth. And that's all it takes, is just the thought, the superstitious thought that something could happen. And wow, you're suddenly protected, aren't you? Whether or not there's actually
the power of fear.
The power of fear is look, that's why I like working with the shadow spirits, man. Those things will, especially to a mundane person who doesn't know what they're dealing with, talk about an attack that just keeps on coming, because even if they can't get through, as soon as they get you scared a little bit, they're getting stronger every second that they're scared. They're going to get more and more powerful. This is why I like them. They're very entertaining spirits to work with.
There was something I learned a long time ago. If you can't make them love you, make them fear you. And that's true. It's just true.
The way I heard it was that, and if you can't be feared, then fear no one, because it has the same effect.
Exactly. And so, like, should be apparent, my go-to method, I don't get on here and kiss ass, and I don't try to make myself out to be something I'm not, but I step out in the form of just being me, just who I am. And I'll treat every single one of you the exact same. You show me who you are, I'm showing you who I am, and we're going to get along just fine. We're just going to do whatever the fuck it is we're doing.
There was a movie a long time ago, and I love this one line. It was The Last Unicorn, and the king said to the rest of I use a lot of movie references, don't I? The king said to the group of people that were in his presence that my secrets protect themselves. And I'm a very open person, because I am not ashamed of anything that I am. And if I am ashamed of something, if there's something I don't want you to know, it'll never cross my lips. You'll never know about it.
I'm the same here, dude.
Yeah, I'd rather be upfront. And as an empath, as someone who's empathic, I will tell you shocking things about myself to read you, because a lot of people are not aware that how the kind of signals they give off with their body language, with their personality, the things they say, their inflections. If someone, especially someone, pardon me, who was raised in a mentally abusive household or something, or a dangerous life, a lot of times they will develop a high level of empathy, because they have to be able to predict when their guardian, whatever, is going to attack them. Someone with a lot of empathy can just read the subtlest signals and go, that person doesn't like me. I know they don't like me. And that will automatically put you in a position of power over them, because you know something that they don't want you to know, believe it or not. And it's not that hard. It's not even necessarily fully magical. When I say I'm empathic, I'm not even saying that like this is an ESP, like, you know, like somehow like you have to do magic to get this.
No, but when you know something about whoever it is, you have tapped into them.
Yep.
I'm the same way, dude. I got you.
And you can manipulate the daylights out of them and do what they want. And I generally use that respectfully and without, you know, I didn't always. When I was younger, I would make you, you know, like I've talked to you about my past when I used to do the cult thing and all that stuff. I would find out what the person wanted. I would feel them. I was that guy who could put his hand on your shoulder and make you think that I was literally reading your mind and feeling your emotions and doing all this and make you do what I wanted. And I could get a lot of people to do that. It was actually something that I was kind of proud of in a sick, morbid way. And then as I got older, as I saw through the lie of what I was doing of my own self, I wasn't being honest with myself. That had to stop. And I decided this is a waste of this power. I can use this for something a lot more beneficial. And I'm just not into that kind of thing anymore, but I could be lying.
What's really cool about that, and since you brought that up to our audience, I also remember that my take when you were telling me this, the average person, their first thought when they hear something like that come out of someone's mouth is, I wonder if he's trying to play me. My first thought was seriously? Never crossed my mind, and really could give a fuck less. Because there was one thing about it. I have one of two choices. And this goes for anybody out there. You have one of two choices. A, if you know yourself, if you truly know yourself, you really honestly have nothing to fear. Nothing. You know, maybe be aware, maybe be conscious, but you have nothing to fear. And then the second thing is this right here. Very first thing I picked up on out of you, I didn't sense anything like that. I just sensed honesty. And I can take that. I can work with honesty.
You know, the best lies are couched in the greatest honesty. And I'm not saying that to make you pause, but, you know, as a Luciferian person, and I don't mean just because I never read any Luciferian book in my life. I have no fucking clue what anything in Luciferianism is. I often have to tell people this. Everything I know is intuitive through spirits. I do read books. That's not that I've never read anything. It's not that I don't research online. But when I say I'm Luciferian, I haven't picked up. I think my wife is reading it around Michael Ford or whatever his name is. I never read anything that was Luciferian. I never read LaVey. I don't know what these people are about. This is just how the spirits have worked through me and taught me to be through trial, error, practice, and failure. And I'm telling you right now that when they say Lucifer is like a great liar, he's a great liar because he tells you the truth. Yeah. He tells you the truth about yourself in a way that you will never be able to deal with. And that one little lie he might insert in there, like me, if I'm manipulating you when I was leading the cult like that, the little tiny lies that you don't find. This is all part of defense, guys. I'm not just telling you this because I'm being edgy and cool. That one little lie that's inserted into your experience, that's the
truth.
That's the hidden blade that goes in under your guard and gets you. And that's you got to be aware of that when you're dealing with people, especially in the magical community. Like, I love Waylon like a brother already. I mean, we've only known each other for a little while. I sent him a piece of jewelry that carried a piece of me with it to help him out that he's wearing right now. And, you know, that doesn't mean that there's no protections on it, but it means that, you know, I trusted him because I could sense that he's doing good for the community. He's trying to do the right things. But even in the magical community, there's a lot of people I look at and I work with and I talk to and I go, I don't trust you 100%. I'll be your best buddy, but I don't trust you. And I don't say this to their face necessarily unless I feel like telling them that. But you shouldn't trust everybody in the magic. Just like Waylon's saying, we got to come together and help each other. That's true. But don't trust everybody, because some people, they're just waiting for you to tell them something they can use against you. You know, especially people you know in person.
Hence the spirit of discernment.
Discernment. I said that in my first blog post, I think.
I know. I remember. Dude, I'm telling you, it's that spirit of discernment. That's not just in the realm of Christianity.
No.
Everybody is in. There is a spirit of truth within all things. But if you're a lying, deceitful motherfucker, the spirit of truth is not with you, and you won't be able to tell the difference. There goes your discernment right there.
Yep.
You know, it's like I've said in some of my earlier videos back in the Necronomicon videos and some of the other interviews I did and was done with by other people, was that if you can't be honest with anybody, be honest with yourself. Just straight up. But that goes with the spirit of discernment. Now, I wanted to go back to something that had been stated earlier concerning, I think it was somebody put on there that no pity for the weak. There's a second part to that. Whereas you do not pity the weak, do not envy the strong.
Oh, God, yeah. It's that's a weakness. That's such a weakness.
Polarities, and you want to think of dualities, and you want to think of the realm of what actually affects you. You've got to remember, whatever you're against, you've also got to be for.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to have that duality and balance, okay? You don't have to be dual, but you have to have it at least balanced.
No, I totally feel it's such a good point. In martial arts, it's expressed as a principle of you can have the most skilled, the most powerful, the greatest fighter you can imagine. Picture the greatest UFC fighter or the best US Marine or whatever it is that you think is a badass. All right. This guy might have a kill streak, 100 miles long, and he has every title in the world, and he's master of every weapons. All it takes is one lucky son of a bitch on the wrong day, the right side of the tracks, to stab him through the ribs and kill him. He doesn't have to be powerful. And my point to that is talking about your don't envy the strong. It's the same principle. Weakness is a strength too. Weakness is also a strength. You don't have to be the most powerful thing to beat something powerful or to survive a powerful attacker. You just have to, yeah, go ahead.
Good stamina.
Well, it's not, you can even have no stamina. Look at how other animals in nature fight. Some animals, all it takes is one hit and they win, because they have poison or something like that. Now, as a big guy, I can tell you that stamina-wise was never my strength. That's why I didn't compete for martial arts. But I went the bouncer route. And when you go fight for real, when you're fighting for real and there's no gloves, there's no referee, there's nothing to protect you, 10 seconds is the length of a long fight in the street. It's usually only a few seconds long. And this is why a lot of people don't realize this. They think, oh, if you're big, you're slow. And someone who's big and trained and they're strong, they hit like a truck. and they only have to wrap you up once on the ground. Nothing hits stronger than the ground, by the way. If I throw you to the ground, that's hit stronger than I ever will. And if I land on top of you, you know,
It's like falling from 100 feet.
yes,
Not the fall that will get you.
yeah,
The sudden impact of Earth.
like you know. So when you have I don't have to fight you for 10 minutes. I don't even have, I can get winded all day unless I'm fighting a crowd of people off, in which case, you know, out comes the 357. But, but my point is if you're outmatched, you don't fight people on their strength. I guess that's what I'm really getting at here is you don't fight somebody.
Your own strengths that you use.
You have to make them fight your strength. You have to make them fight your strength. So like my little kid, I'm always trying to teach him because he's a much scrawnier guy than me. And so when I'm teaching him stuff, I'm always trying to teach him the dirty tricks because I'm sitting here thinking to myself, man, if he meets somebody big, he's going to get his clock cleaned. You know, you don't have to be big. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to be fast. You don't have to have endurance, but you got to have something. You got to have a trick, some kind of a knack up your sleeve, a little something up your sleeve. And this applies to magic 100% because you don't have to be, you know, some people will say, oh no, I pissed off, like, think of a powerful sorcerer. I pissed off such and so powerful sorcerer. I'm fucked. Not necessarily. You as a weak individual, if you're noble, again, the spirits might not want to help that person against you if they're a piece of crap. If you have something going for you, if you have, you know, some little piece of strength, you can win. You know, remember, everything in magic is intent and will, and what you can imagine and believe to be true is a huge piece of it. If you believe that all you need is this one little crystal to protect you, well, you might be wrong, and we might laugh at you. Or you know what, your belief might be just aligned just right, and it is a powerhouse of protection that you might not even know that you're right. You know what I'm saying? I've seen this happen before. People who are complete idiots. The fool, right, in the tarot, the fool is the most protected, you know, quality. If you're the fool, believe it or not, you are very well protected.
It's ignorant.
Yeah, the ignorant fool is very
dangers.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that they can't be hurt because of it. It just means that, you know, the spiritual world loves a fool. All right, the spiritual world loves a fool, and they love to take a fool and educate them through hardship. So you will suffer, but you're not going to necessarily fall. You know, a lot of the times the tower card doesn't follow the fool card. You know what I'm saying? Very often it doesn't. It does sometimes, but it doesn't always. So it's just a thing to keep in mind. Being a fool, being a novice at this, don't be afraid. Don't be scared that someone's more powerful than you in magic. Be bold. Be bold, my friend. Always be bold.
You know, because we're using so many symbolisms and things. Taking a step back about the truth and lies and stuff. I spent 6 or 7 years in the Grade of Hierophant. And Hierophant is equated to like a trickster of sorts. Tells the truth through lies and deception. And those were probably the hardest years of my high magical practice through system that I was working, because at the time, you know, I'm a straightforward guy. You know, there's no deceit about me. I don't play games. Not that I cannot play games. Not that I cannot be deceitful. But because that's not where I live. That's not where I come from. That's not who and what I am. But the thing is that I have learned, and I've had to learn this, and most people will have to learn this, that you have to be willing to go as far as it takes to defend yourself as well as to attack.
Never hesitate.
Never.
You have to be aggressive in your defense. You cannot withdraw.
And so when working through the Hierophant, and I've told this to a few people, that to lift the curse of the Hierophant, I had to show my mastery of a magical system, which is why I chose the Necronomicon for that, to rewrite that and to make it into a system that could actually be taught and shown. That's neither here nor there. And I said that in other videos elsewhere too. But that's personal for me, because that's proof of my dedication to the path, not proof of my greatness. Because, you know, greatness is fleeting. Old age will make sure of that. It's children of us all. Naked in this world we came, and naked in this world shall we go. You know, but anyway, so coming back to the point though, and I was talking about that it was a balancing factor, and you got to have a harmony, not a balance. Like I keep using balance, and I don't mean balance. Balance is obtained from having harmony or being in harmony with. And in this sense, so think of it this way. So if you don't pity the weak and the downtrodden, okay, there's an imbalance that can be created within to where you're just a malicious, just real son of a bitch. To be able to balance that, to harmonize, to balance it so that you're in harmony, what you need to do is you have to look at the opposite of the thing. So we think that there are things that we want and that we desire and so forth and so on. And we can see somebody else further down the road, not higher up than us, but further down the path, down the road, that seems to have it all figured out, got all this, that, and the other. A lot of the times we'll find ourselves wishing we had that. We become desirous of it because that's what we all want is success, correct? I would think that that's the thing in it because I don't think anybody wishes for failure in their own self and their own life.
I mean, Gomez Adams did once, and he was so good at succeeding, he failed to succeed. So that was his first failure. He failed to fail.
Right? And so the concept works like this right here. You cannot be envious of what somebody else has or has achieved or obtained. And I know that may sound a little bit biblical as far as the whole 10 Commandments, and I don't remember which commandment.
That has nothing to do with it, man. Nothing at all. I know where you're going.
I don't care because that's not the point. But somebody on there will, go in that direction with it. But the thing is that you have to create that balance. So if you're not going to have mercy, if you're not going to have pity on the weak, at the same time, you can't have envy of those who have succeeded or had, because you have to be separated from both. You have to. This is where they talk about the walking the sinister path, the crooked path, the path of self-attainment, of ascension. And a lot of people may or may not understand ascension and what that actually is and what that means. And maybe if we'll get into that, maybe not. But the thing is that to obtain anything in life, once you've balanced it and you've become in harmony, then you have to separate yourself from it. You have to totally remove yourself, and here's why. So that you're not drugged down with that you should have pity for, and so that you're not destroyed by your desire to have what you do not already have. And that is a balancing act most people can't pull off. But if you can ever manage to do this is the point between magical protection and magical attacks. This is how you're able to both heal and kill. This is one of the things that nobody points these things out. That I don't know why they don't. But they don't.
A lot of times we don't like to give all our secrets away. I mean, I'm one of the exceptions. You're probably another one. I don't mind giving my secrets away because, as far as I'm concerned, I'm writing the book. So if you can beat me at my own game, I'll be impressed. But what I was going to say before was a lot of what you're saying is 100% correct. And I would add on top of that it's about control. When you pity somebody, you're giving them control because you are acting in accord with their will and their desire and their need. When you envy someone, they have control because you are allowing them to guide you where you want to go. You're giving them the power to decide for you what life to live. So you need to be aware that everything you do can be about control, can be seen as control. And if you allow yourself to be attached to these desires or these fears, you are no longer in control. If you're afraid of something, okay, you're allowing that thing to control you. So you have to make sure that when you make a decision to act or not act or to do something, it is not based upon the other thing's power over you, but your own personal decision. So for example, if I say to myself, like I got this incense stick right here, right now. Now, I know that if I want, I can squeeze that out right now. But by doing so, I'm causing pain to myself. So I have to choose, do I want to cause pain to myself, or am I afraid of the pain, or am I aware of the danger? There has to be a separation of the two. I wasn't afraid of that pain, but I was aware it was going to hurt a little bit. I was aware I could burn myself. So I had to be careful, but I wasn't afraid to do it. The same thing goes for any kind of defense or offensive action. you have to be aware, why are you trying to attack somebody, right? Since we're hedging into attack now a little bit, why are you attacking somebody even? Why do you feel the need to attack them? Is it because they are actually a threat to you, or is it because they're actually in control over you when you decide to attack them? In other words, if I hate you so much that I have to kill you, aren't you in a way in control of me because I have a reason that is not my own to do something to you? So I have to make sure that my reason for acting against you is my own choice and not something that you're causing in me, because it all comes back again to your truest intent and your truest will. If your truest intent is to destroy somebody, you have to examine why. It's very rare, and this is one of the reasons why offensive magic tends to fail a lot, even for people who are good at it, is because your truest intention is very rarely to do this harm that you think you want to do to them. Usually your truest intention is to get them out of your life, to remove them from your situation so that you don't have to deal with them anymore. So you might attack them and you might cause a situation that removes them from your life. I say this every time. I have a story that I use every time, and it's a hypothetical story. You curse somebody, you do everything right. Your curse is for them to die next week on Friday. They are going to die, and you did that spell better than anyone's ever done a spell. The demons were all like, yeah, we're going to kill him. Everything just happened perfectly. Okay. You are convinced it's going to work. So this person you don't like is your boss at work, we'll say. And so every day you're at work looking, oh, I can't wait for this guy to die. This is going to be so good. This is going to be so good. Well, lo and behold, that Friday comes, the day he's supposed to die. And instead of dying, he gets a promotion. And he gets sent to Hawaii to a new office where he's going to live a better life. And he's going to have it great for the rest of his life getting this promotion. And now you're sitting there thinking to yourself, my God, my spell failed. The demons, they lied to me. They didn't kill him. Well, guess what, buddy? Your real intent wasn't to kill him.
You killed with kindness.
You wanted him gone. And you actually got your manifestation. That spell worked. It just didn't work the way you thought it would. So the baneful magic is a joke to me in some ways, because when someone says, I'm going to do a baneful spell to you, I go, bring it on. All you're really trying to do is get me to block you on Facebook. So I have to that's all that's going to happen. It's not going to work 99.999% of the time, because no one's intention, unless you're a true psychopath, in which case you rarely have the ability to work magic because it requires a certain depth of emotion. It very rarely does baneful magic work the way it's intended. I'm not saying it never works. You and I both know, you have your stories, I got my stories. But I'm also saying that it's never, ever, 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 like, if I want to hurt you, I'm going to kill you with a gun.
Myriad.
It's the pathways are so vast that this curse could take. So, like, whenever I do magic, I don't like to use specific desires. I will say, bring whatever harm to this person is necessary to remove them from my life. And that is the curse. It's not make him break his leg, make his doctor fuck up his operation. It's do whatever harm is required to remove this person from my experience. And even the harm is flexible, to be honest with you. So my intent has nothing to do with your suffering, because I'm above your suffering. I don't give a fuck if you suffer or if you have pleasure, because what did I say initially? If my goal is to cause you to suffer, it's because you're controlling me. You're defining my goal for me, believe it or not. If my goal is to get you out of my life, then it doesn't matter whether you suffer or not.
And in return, what I would have to do is be like, I don't give a fuck whether he wishes me good or ill. He has no say so over myself or my well-being.
Yes.
You have to have that center of power. Now, before we go further, let me backtrack so I can get like three things answered.
Yep.
Okay, so first off, and this is an addendum to the subject of to the first subject that you answered on. So what's happening when you pity the weak? What actually happens is you're giving them your protection from that you would be using to protect yourself from that, because it's an emotional power that you're giving them. That's how pity works. When you feel sorry for somebody, you're giving them your power and you're protecting them from what you want protection from yourself.
Yep.
Okay, this is why you don't do that. Now, the reason why you do not envy the strong or the successful or whatever, the reason why you do not do that is because you're giving away your power to create that in your own life. You're giving them all your power and saying, oh, you're the only one that can get this and do this. I can't. I lack the
Yep.
ability. I lack the skill. Every time you envy those who have, that's what you're doing. You're taking it from yourself. Uh, Second thing, okay, so that was the first part. The second part, I'm trying to keep this all in line because we also have a question here.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember it all. Wow. Okay, so let's go with the question because I'll have to think on what it was that you said that I had a thought on. It was right after that it was the next part that you were talking about.
Someone rewind the feed.
Because, right? But if you're supposed to be in harmony with a thing, wouldn't holding the thing close to the chest be good rather than distancing yourself? All right, so Logan, let me go into this just a little bit. As a practitioner, one of the very first skills, whether consciously aware of it or not, that you're working on is the ability to shift states of mind at will. Okay. Now, you think of a desire that you want. Okay. I equate it to a cup. You have to start off with an empty cup. So, like, let's say, for example, you want $100 bill. Okay. Well, first off, you have to start with the thought, and this is the empty cup. The empty cup here is symbolic of your desire. Your desire is for that $100. Okay. And this is just an example. Well, you've created the cup, which is the desire. Now you have to fill the cup. Now you want the $100, so you have to focus on your desire being met. How do you do this? You have to visualize it so strongly that you can taste it, feel it, smell it, touch it, just absolutely everything. And this is called charging something with your intent, with your desire, with your will. Okay. This also is a state of mind that you're shifting. So you went from desire and you shifted into the mindset. You went from your normal mundane self, shifted your mindset to a desire of what you wanted, shifted your mindset even further to charging it, to empowering it. And then you have to shift it one more time. You have to empty the cup because you cannot fill a cup unless it be empty. You have to pour it out. That means you have to totally let it go.
Yep.
Your desire, your want, everything that you built up in it, everything from your starting desire to the energy you put into it, you've got to absolutely let it go 100%. And the reason why is because you've got to shut the connection off between you and it, because that is pure energy that is going towards that goal. And if you don't shut the door, if you don't close off the link, if you don't cut the flow of energy to it, you can keep messing with it subconsciously and not even know it. You can cause it from manifesting, from coming into being. A lot of people know this. If you've ever worked on spell work, on manifesting things, this is the key to it. Yeah, like just rolling dice. But unlike rolling the dice, think of it this way. Yeah, even then, you need to be careful because, see, check it. You have to absolutely believe in yourself. I don't care if you can only do a spell for 5 minutes. If you can only keep your shit together, hold your emotions intact, a focused mind, a quiet atmosphere, whatever, for 5 minutes, and you're going to be doing the spell work in the 5 minutes. Very first thing is you need to start your working, not building yourself up thinking, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. No, you need to automatically be in the state of mind of my will shall be done. My will is accomplished.
It's already done.
Exactly. And after you empty the cup, that's how you shut it off is you sit there and you say, you end it with something. So it is.
Yeah. When I have two things to say about this in particular. One is in my system of magic, I have the three states of consciousness. I have the empty mind, the focused mind, and the open mind. And the empty mind is basically the zazen, the empty mind of there's no thoughts in your mind. And I always close out my rituals, all my magic, ends on that empty mind state, which comes naturally to me. When I'm speaking to you right now, most of the time I'm in an empty mind state. I speak spontaneously. There's no pre-thought going through my head. I hate trying to think my words before I speak them. We'll put it that way. So I'm literally just talking to you so spontaneously.
Yeah, flowing.
This is important in magic because you need to be able to let go of your intent and your desire so that it does fly out and do what you want. If you're holding on to it, you're keeping the energy to yourself as much as you're charging. You're still charging it, but you're holding on to it. It's kind of like I'll use my best analogy is archery. My better archery, the one that I like is archery. I don't know if anybody here does archery at all, but in Zen and in archery in general, the principle is not to aim the arrow, it's to release the arrow. Okay. You don't shoot the arrow, you let it go. And you need to align your intent. Archery, if you can get into instinctive archery in particular, I love instinctive archery. And instinctive archery is different from regular archery because you don't use a sight. You are literally, you draw your bow, you look at the target, and you let it go pretty much right away. You don't hold it very long. And the arrow will, with practice, you become intuitive about where the arrow is going to land. And what you're doing is you're letting your subconscious mind fire the arrow for you. And if you're very in tune with your ability, you can get just as accurate, at least up to a certain distance, with instinctive archery. You do have to practice more because you do have to learn your ranges, but you can literally draw back and shoot quicker than anybody with a sight can do. And you can track a moving target better as well. So it's a very good short range version of archery. Now, this version of archery is just like doing magic. You are drawing back, you are empowering the spell when you draw it back. You're focusing on it. You're focusing your will. Don't think too much about the release. You need to literally just let go. Let the magic go and do what it's going to do. Build up the energy. Like I say in my ritual workings with my Trinity of Self symbol that I use, I take and I align reality. I always do this motion. I align reality with my intent and my will, and then I let it go so that reality forms around it to match that crystalline structure that I've created. I don't worry about it. I just go, it might work, it might not, and I let it go. Never make magic your only hope. That's another wise thing to tell you. Never make magic your only hope. It's going to fail if it is. Not fail, but it's much more likely to fail if it is. Magic should be a supplement, as Waylon often says. And if you're going to cast a spell, you need to let it go like an archer and let the arrow find its target. Don't get in the way. Like if you're shooting a bow and you're holding it and you're trying to aim and your hand is shaking around and you're trying to find where to let it go, your mind is never going to be as quick as your subconscious mind is at letting that arrow go. You need to trust yourself to just let it go and let it be what it's going to be. You have to align yourself with your truest will and your truest intention. If you're aligned with your truest intention, you're going to get what you want, whether you do it or not. I often say that my magic is a celebration of a thing that's already done, because when I do a spell, I already know that I'm aligned with my intent. I already know that this is what I want, and not as an ego. This isn't my ego saying, I just want to have money. No, it's, I need to be financially free. And when I do the spell, I am letting the situation go and letting my spiritual energy do the work that it needs to do. Now, you do have to follow up with mundane action. You can't just do a spell and not do mundane action to support it. If your goal is, say, defense, since we're on the subject of defense, not only do you need to cast a spell to defend yourself or erect defenses, you also need to take proactive action. Let's say someone's bothering you. We'll use a Facebook reference since most people are on social media more than they are in the real world anymore. Block the fucker that's bothering you, and that's it. Don't engage with them anymore. Don't find them and argue with them. I know a guy on Facebook, he's constantly having drama all the goddamn time, and it's with the same people. I'm like, why don't you block them, ignore them? Why do you keep following them around? It's the same thing. If they're doing all these spells to curse these people or to defend themselves from these people, and you're spending your time worrying about what they have to say about you, you didn't beat them. Some people, one of the best curses you can place on someone is to make them unable to forget you, to get you out of their head, to get under their skin. And man, if you can do that, you fuck them up. I mean, you really do. Hate is a powerful attack. Making someone hate you hurts them.
It does. Now that we've gone through the armament into the protection and broaching on this, let's go full tilt boogie in on this on the casting baneful magic, attacking magical attack.
Mm-hmm.
the same way that we broke down, and hopefully it won't take an hour and 15 minutes to do this next part. But
I have
same
more
way we
content.
broke down the original. Let's try to, because, well, I don't know how much time everybody has and whether or not they come back and watch the 3 hour long video. But the thing is so let's break it down the same way as we did how to protect yourself magically. So first and foremost, never think that if you're attacking somebody that it's the same thing as going up to them, pointing the gun, and pulling the trigger. Okay, never think it's that simple and that easy, and so forth and so on. Okay, now this doesn't mean that you have to get all crazy and shit, but I'm trying to explain this a little bit as I can. Uh, First off, know this: magic will only do for you what you yourself are physically willing to go out and do. This doesn't mean you have to go out and shoot a motherfucker for reals, before you try to magically attack them. That's not what I mean by that, so please do not misunderstand that. But what it does mean is that if you're not, if it is that bad that you have to resort to something like magic to attack somebody, that means you've surely gotten to the point to where you're like, this needs dealt with. Uh, Not too long ago, back last year, uh, had a neighbor that was a huge danger to me and my wife, to our well-being, our physical well-being. And I knew this motherfucker needed to go on, and he had mental issues and all kinds of weird crap. And for some reason, the people who ran this place would do nothing about it. And I'm like, okay, I got you. And for the longest, I figured, I was trying to figure out what I should do, how I should do. And this is part of it. You have to decide how far do you need to go to deal with a problem. You need to do this before you decide what kind of magical attack you're going to do first off anyway. Because you want it to be precise, equal pressure. The same amount of the required force should be met. In my situation, this guy's like threatening drive-bys and just sneaking up on me and stabbing me and all this other really weird, crazy crap, you know. And so the first thing I thought was, you know, nothing's going to stop this guy because first off, he's psychologically so imbalanced that he's like a cokehead strong. You're not going to stop him. You have to literally put him down with a bullet. He's like a rabid dog. He's got to be put down. And that's just the way this guy was. I'll try to come back to find out what you misunderstood, but anyway, so me knowing this guy has to go. The next thought was, well, if I'm ready to have to stay up all night to defend my home against some idiot, you know, magically I'm going to, I'm going to pull the trigger. And so through intuition and through whatever, I chose a spirit that would take care of this. Now, I also had to take into account that the cost, because nothing in this world is free. And when you are building and charging your own body's energies, you can't come from a place of fear. Okay, not with magical attacks. Magical attacks, something in life may make you afraid, might make you cautious and just overly worrisome. But when it comes to magical attacks, you can't be coming from a place of fear. You have to make sure that you're coming from your place of power. And if it takes anger, rage, if that, because for me, it's natural that things that scare me or that hurt my feelings automatically turn to anger so that it becomes a weapon, not a chink in my fucking armor. And this is what you've got to do with these situations. You've got to turn that fear into anger. And I'm not talking about crazy anger like you go out, and set fire to somebody's fucking house. Not psycho crazy, not that kind of anger, but you got to become so angry and you've got to be like, I don't deserve this. I'm not going to deal with this. This is over and done with. Oh, okay, cool, Logan. Uh, and that's how you've got to approach it. Now, then, once you've done that, then it's just a matter of finding either a spirit that you're going to ask for their petition, their aid, or you're going to create one hell of a curse of your own, and involving spirits, names, and stuff empowers it even further, along with that rage. But with that rage, and I think my boy Thorne here, he can agree with me, being a martial artist, which I was into martial arts, but probably not to the extent a lot of people like Ender and Thorne here, and a few others of you, because I don't know if any of y'all know martial arts, but there's this thing called discipline, and and
You like a discipline.
oh yeah, yeah, recognition. but but when it comes to declaring war, when it comes to attacks, you cannot let that anger and that rage overwhelm you. You have to be focused, and focus requires discipline. Uh, you have to take that rage and you have to fill your mind with the person's face that has done this to you. And all that rage has to be pointed at them within your mind's eye. And then the very next thing that you're going to want to do, and this isn't an idea of how to curse or anything like this is the basis of magical attacks. Once you have focused all that rage and that energy towards them, you need to visualize them either burning, just extreme torment, pain. But then you need to find out, like, you're going to use the spirit. Like in my case, I did. I used one of the spirits from from the Book of Smokeless Fire, and wow, was that effective!
I hide mine in my closet for the doomsday.
Oh, dude, I looked up and purchased number one of 500 hardback. That is like the kingly book of my collection. Uh, but because the book is so effective and so powerful, and because like one of 500, really seriously, yeah, I want that. Uh, but anyway, so I found a spirit that would do this, and then it came time to offer the blood and the oil and everything else, and to do the calling and all this, that, and the other. And then, just like I was explaining earlier about the cup, the same thing comes to this: your desire, your charging or filling of the cup, and then you have to empty it, meaning you cast it, you do whatever, but then you totally. Now, this is the different part between desires of like money or a piece of ass or something. When it comes to magical attacks, you need to absolutely make certain that every bit of emotion has been poured out, like you're burning a seal or something like that, or something that finishes the spell. As it's just turning to ash and it's going, you need to fill yourself with all that emotion and feel it pouring out into the fire or into the flame that's consumed your petition of destruction of your enemy. And you have to let all of it go. You have to let go of why you came to this point. I mean, it will literally emotionally, mentally, physically exhaust you. Like you'll feel like you're about to pass the fuck out if you've done this right. And when you've done this, let it go. Do not, under any circumstance, try to track them down, try to see what's going on, anything like that. Because here's what happens: you have built up all this energy, you've gave it a target, and you've wrapped them in it. Okay. Now, what happens when you're constantly checking on something is you are mentally, spiritually connected to them, and that same energy that used to destroy them is coming back circle to you, and it'll start hurting you as well. And so, to keep this from happening, uh, and I might have done this a bit backwards, really, but to keep this from happening, you need to learn how to remove your enemy's defenses. Thorne, you got anything you want to throw in here before I go crazy?
I could go for a long time. I just want to make sure we're done because I'm going to take over for a little bit.
Do it, brother.
I'll end where you start. I'll start where you ended. You do have to take out somebody's defenses first, and I brought that up earlier. A skilled attacker is never going to just attack you directly. They're going to attack your pets, your family, your home, your job, all of that, especially if they know that you work magic, because they know you have defenses up. So they want to drain you of your resolve. That's the first thing. But I was writing some notes to make sure I wouldn't forget what I wanted to talk about. The first thing I want to say, if you want to harm somebody, like if someone's breaking into my home and I need to defend myself and I need to use baneful magic to do it, I'm going to die. I have this. That's what I use instead. Okay. Much more useful for destroying an enemy is physical means. Mundane means are just very more effective initially. But magic will bolster these things. Almost every weapon I own in my possession has been magically enhanced in some way. It's been blessed by a spirit. It has my energy imbued into it. It's somehow empowered so that, that little extra bit of, some would call luck, will be on my side if I ever need to utilize it. That is a very important part of magic offense, is to make sure it's part of your mundane actions. But I would also like to remind everybody that magic doesn't always follow the path of least rational resistance. And what that means is your magic is very rarely going to manifest in an unnatural way. It's almost always going to be something that is believable to a skeptic. So in other words, it's always going to be seen as a coincidence. Your enemy is going to fall down a flight of stairs, and it's not going to be any more mysterious than that. You will just, at the exact moment you need it, your gun will be in your hand. That kind of thing is what's going to happen. That's usually how magic works. Very rarely, and there are exceptions, and they have to be mentioned, very rarely does magic bend or break the laws of nature. It does happen, but I would say that when it does happen, at least in the modern era, it can't be proven. It's going to be impossible to prove, and I wouldn't look for it. I don't expect my magic to cause a supernatural, impossible event to happen. I don't expect, if I want to hit my friend, not my friend, if I want to hit my enemy to destroy his hometown with a hurricane, I'm not going to expect a hurricane to materialize over his home.
If that starts happening to me, I am so texting or calling or blowing up your phone.
Take that stone I gave you, hit with a hammer, it'll blow it away. But seriously, what the magic is going to do is it's going to cause some tribal shaman in Africa somewhere to decide that he needs to put an arrangement of food out for his spirits, and because he had a dream about it that night. Then a fly is going to come along and fly around that, and his wing beats are going to cause an air current that's going to cause a bigger air current that's going to lead to a tropical depression off the coast of Africa, which is going to blow up into Florida and flatten my enemy's house. It's not going to be, boom, there it is. It's going to be a rational manifestation in 99.9% of the time. Now, I am someone who has told Waylon, I've gone on live air talking about this, and I have videos where you can actually see some manifestation happening. It's very low level, but you can see it. Even if you don't have the sight, you'll see the wind picking up when I'm talking. These things do happen. They do happen, these supernatural events. Again, a skeptic would say, oh, it was just a coincidence. But this works for your offense. So do not expect your offensive magic to just be, oh, he had a heart attack, or, oh, he just, he burst into flames in the middle of obviously most of you know this, but it needs to be said because there's a lot of people who don't realize that. They expect this other thing to happen. So always plan your spells, whether they be for bane or for benefit, to follow a rational path of outcome, something that doesn't break the laws of nature. That's not rule number one, but that's a very big thing to remember. Number two is the use of spirits. There's more than two kinds, but there's two kinds of magic that I usually work with. It's either my own personal magic, my own personal energy, and my astral body and all these other things that are doing it, or I employ spirits. And I like to employ spirits because I'm lazy. I'm just going to be brutally honest with you. And by lazy, I don't mean I'm not willing to do the work. It means I don't want to be spending all my time pumping into a spell and doing all this other stuff. I'd rather they teach me the spell or they help me with it. Because if you're working with your spirits, they're more than happy to assist you up to a point. Spirits have a tendency to teach you more than they would rather help you. They'll help you a few times, I've noticed. All spirits are different, but they'll do for you a few times, but then they expect you to start picking up your own slack, and they'll start teaching you. But there's a lot of spirits out there who are very happy to do for you, especially if you're giving them, as Waylon would call it, a kingly gift. And spirits, if you have a protective spirit, this can be a form of baneful magic as well. Someone attacks you. Malphus is in my back. He's got my back. And I have posted before, woe unto anyone who trifles with a crow witch, because you have no fucking clue what's going to come for you. Crow witches don't fuck around. It's not even me that's doing it. It's Malthus, who's literally just watching my back. You won't even be able to, I'll just see it coming and go, nope, just going to block you. I don't need you in my life. You're dealt with. But offensively, now you can get into spirits. Oh, he just slipped my brain. He's the owl, right? He's the owl riding the wolf. Oh my God. What's his name? In the Goetic pantheon. I can't think of his name. I feel like a jackass all of a sudden.
I can see him too, dude.
You know what? I can't think of his name. Somebody knows it off the top. I don't know what. It starts with an A, I think. Oh, geez.
Androphus?
Androphus sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right, Cam. And I've never worked with him, but I know someone who does, and he is brutal. I mean, he will eviscerate your enemies, but he could also eviscerate you. Now, this is symbolic. I'm going to get off on a tangent for a second. If you work with Goetic spirits, and you're looking through the book of what they do, almost everything that they describe is symbolic. If it talks about walls, that's structural, that's defensive, that's holding something in or keeping something out. If it's talking about towers, that's active defenses. If it's talking about building structures, that's building strength and support in your life. If it talks about bringing you love, you're going to notice it always says something like, but will make the woman infertile. It doesn't actually just mean infertile, although it can. What it really means is it's going to destroy your chances of a fulfilling relationship, because when this grimoire was written, fertility was a sign of a successful relationship, was having children. So you would win the object of your affection, but it wouldn't go anywhere. You get your lustful ends out of it. So when you're working with these Goetic spirits and you're looking for offensive spirits, you want to look for spirits that cause storms. That doesn't necessarily mean that they cause a storm, although it can. It means that it causes turbulence and causes chaos in your enemy. If a spirit causes you, can make you invisible, it's a spiritual invisibility, or people just won't suspect you, things like that. So when you're making your offensive pacts with these spirits, one of them, that one we were talking about, he's dangerous to the conjurer as well. He can kill the conjurer, it says. But that death is also not necessarily physical, though it can be. I would always say it can be, but it's very much likely going to be more of what the death card would represent in the tarot, which doesn't necessarily mean death at all. It means great change, and it means great revelation about yourself, things like that. So keep this in mind. These spirits are very useful for this, and I would like to use spirits because they will take care of your lightweight without you having to deal with it yourself. I've had this happen to me several times where someone threatened me, caused me energetic disruption or problems, and it was almost like people who wronged me were cursed automatically. I didn't have to do anything. They would suffer some pitfall that no one stuck up. They would suddenly get ill. They would drop dead. One guy literally dropped dead in the store where he took my job. He literally just dropped dead of a heart attack. He was 30 years old. He dropped dead of a heart attack. He was a skinny guy, and nobody saw it coming. He just dropped dead one night. No drugs, no nothing. Now, when I inquired with the spirits I worked with, they said you didn't need to be distracted. We just dealt with it for you. And this will put you in a position, if this ever happens to you, if you ever have that experience, you're going to have one or two reactions to it. You're either going to be like, I'm a badass, this is cool, or you're going to have a fucking moment of clarity, if I can put it that way. You're going to have a moment of, you're going to be scared, because you're going to realize, let me put it to you this way. A lot of people working with magic, even people who are advanced, will be surprised sometimes when things come to pass, and it can scare them, because a lot of times we're wrapped up in our normal lives. We don't realize that magic is working all the time, because we need to live a mundane life to be fulfilled. When it comes to fruition, when it manifests every once in a while, this can actually be scary. Anyone who has never experienced a spirit in their personal experience and had them appear or manifest strongly doesn't realize that even someone who's experienced will still jump when that table goes thump, when you call on the spirit and say, give me a strong sign, and the wall bangs, or you'll still jump, because it's even though you're expecting it. And if you get an apparition, you'll still go, holy shit. The same thing happens when a curse works. You can be scared. And if you're talking to your spirit and it says, yeah, I killed him for you because he was going to bother you, he's going to hurt you, you're still going to be like, whoa, I better be careful who I piss off, because it can be frightening. Also remember the strength in numbers. Okay. When you are trying to work with, these spirits or by yourself for offense or defense, it always helps to have assistance, but at the same time, numbers can give you false confidence. Like we said before, someone who's very strong, or has many people against you doesn't automatically mean they're going to win. Sometimes that just means that they're going to be confused or they're not going to be attacking the right way. But getting back to what Waylon, this is probably the most important thing, or maybe the second most important thing. When you're talking about anger, now as a martial artist, what we call that is more like you're bringing out your dark side. You are bringing out the beast mode, basically. And you have to realize that you don't want to dwell there in a fight. That is actually a bad idea. But you do need the aggression from it. You need controlled aggression is what I call it. You need to have if you ever watch, you wouldn't, but if there was ever security camera footage of me getting into an altercation when I was a bouncer, I would start off, I would get the shakes. Sometimes I'd be actually, like feeling ill because my adrenaline was kicking up, and I was doing breath work to control myself so I wouldn't get too worked up. But once it happened, I'm either laughing or totally stone cold. It's one or the other. I don't get too angry. If I get angry, I'm losing. So I would rather channel a switch goes off, and I don't care if you live or die. If I have to use violence, I don't say, I'm just going to punch you enough till you stop. I go for broke every time. It's one of the reasons why I never liked to do sport fighting, because it would either, not be what I would be good at, or it would be because I go straight for what ends the fight. I don't engage in bar fights. If someone picks a fight, I'm going to walk away. I'm always going to walk. I'm going to look like a coward. I'd rather walk away with my tail between my legs rather than go to jail because I killed the person, because that's where I go. When I was a bouncer, I didn't go for, if I had to physically get involved, I sometimes got in trouble because I would go straight for things that really hurt the person to get rid of them. But I also had a reputation for it. So usually when things would happen, people would go, oh, no, don't do it. He'll hurt you. And that's not me saying I'm a badass by any stretch of the word. It's not like that. This is the same mentality you have to use when you're attacking someone in Magic. You have to be able to go there. That's what Waylon was talking about. You have to be willing to take this gun and capable and putting it to your enemy's head and pulling the trigger. If you can't do that, your baneful magic is not going to do what you think it's going to do. So you need to have I call it a cold kill. You have to have a cold kill mentality. When you are about to do this, it should be ice in your veins, not fire. And this ice has to be the ice of a predator. Predators, they don't kill in anger. Predators are, if you ever watch like a Rottweiler is a great example. You ever
protection.
What's that? Food or protection?
Protection.
Yeah. If you ever watch, if you ever break into a home or visit your friend's house when he's not home and they've got a Rottweiler and they're barking at you, their tail's going a mile a minute. They look happy. Okay. They're like, hey, let's fight. Let's go. I'm going to kill this guy. Let's do it. And I had to tell you, like, I'll laugh like a screaming demon while I'm killing you. I'm like, I mean, I get crazy, and it's not just mania. It's glee, and it's that dark side that I can tune into when I don't like you enough to hurt you. And I don't feel anything, you tune it all out. I had a guy one time last year. We were working at my job, and he had a knife that I let him borrow, and he started doing something with it I didn't approve of because it was an expensive knife. And I got mad at him. He held it out like he was going to use it on me because he didn't like me. And I just literally grabbed the knife blade first out of his hand, didn't care, and just proceeded to start fucking with him. Now, he could have potentially used that on me, but that no fear shocked the shit out of him. The fact that I was willing to just take the knife out of his hand, and not care if he tried to cut me with it, this made him go, ugh. And if you notice in nature, when an animal is striking at something, it goes for broke as well. An animal doesn't, what is it? A wolf, when it takes out an enemy and it goes for the jugular, it's putting its best weapon, which is also its head, closest to the enemy without fear. It could get its eyes poked out. It could get its own neck crushed or broken or bit. Watch dogs fight. Their best weapon is also their biggest, like, we all want to protect our heads. Well, they go right in with their head. And I'm not saying you need to do that, but you need to have the same mentality that you're going to go through your enemy, not anything else. You're literally just going to go through them 100%. And if it kills you in the process, it does. And this is why baneful magic is, as Waylon said, is also dangerous to you. When you're willing to go into an attack on someone with baneful magic, especially if you're working with, like the Book of Smokeless Fire or something like we were talking about, these are spirits that don't fuck around. And if you fuck up, they're going to come for you. If you don't keep up your end of your bargain, now you've got them coming after you. And if you're casting baneful magic on someone, if you're casting a curse, like there's this one that I saw where you bury the curse in the graveyard. What if the spirits of that graveyard don't approve of your curse? Did anybody ever think of that? A lot of these people, they'll take their curse jar, whatever it is, and they'll wrap it up and they'll put it and bury it in the graveyard. Do you have the spirits of that graveyard's permission to use that graveyard for that purpose? Have you path walked that graveyard? People don't think of these things, and they wonder why nothing works or it backfires on them all the fucking time. So, am I wrong there, Waylon? Is that a good point?
Dude, it's a thing. Straight up, I mean, that's involving a spirit. It's no different than, like, I have a friend up here who was friends with somebody. Well, they decided to go out and pick a fight. Well, they couldn't handle the fight that they had picked. And because they were friends with him, decided to come to him and be like, hey, man, you want to help me with this? Meanwhile, they had already told dude that they're going to go get him to help him kick his ass. And dude's like, you started this, you deal with it. Spirits are much the same way. Unless you have approached them and asked them for their aid most of the damn time. Unless,
like, how dare you ask them to do something for you without aligning with them a little bit first? If your first invocation to a spirit is, could you kill my enemy for me? Man, you're an asshole. I'm sorry, but these spirits don't like to be trifled like that. Some will be all right with it. Some are very mercenary, but in my experience, no, that's like coming into my house and saying, I hear you're a badass. Would you kill this guy for me? Who are you?
Yeah.
Like, even a hitman needs to know you first, or have a connection to get through.
You've made so many good points on that. There are things that you want to do. Well, first off, I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna say something concerning that fire in your veins thing versus, or that ice in your veins versus.
You can get icy fire.
Earlier when I was describing, turning that fear or whatever into rage or anger or anything like that, that's an emotional fire. Well, emotions usually, unless you know how to focus them,
yeah,
they don't become that cold, hard, cold, just resolute behavior or mentality that it takes to succeed. And that's what I was talking about with discipline.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, for example, I get mad. I may be initially emotional, the shaking, the just anger, the just, you just overcome with emotion, with the feeling. But then the very next thing I'll do is I'll resolve within my mind exactly what I'm going to fucking take care of it.
Mm-hmm.
I do. It becomes cold as ice.
You're right. You do need that. Yeah, I should have mentioned that.
Yeah, you did a very good job. Yeah, I feel more like I'm further in what you said than that and that. But the thing is, though, is that once I've created that stone cold resolve.
Andros, by the way, sorry to interrupt. Andros was the spirit I was thinking of, not Andralphus. It was sorry.
I'm trying to think. Flamboyant Fearin said that.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, Flamboyant Fearin Lilith Satan Set Witch. It's a mouthful. Word salad. Nice name. I like that. That's kind of cool. That's how you compact a lot of forces into one thing. That's cool. But anyway, there are a few things that before you ever get to the point of what you're going to do, I like to say it like this right here. If you're not a strategist, you need to become one. Because when it comes to magical attacks, it's no different than an army.
It's the same. You definitely pick up the art of war.
Yeah,
pick that up right away.
You are taking upon yourself, instead of waiting on the universe to defend you or have your back, you're deciding you're going to take care of it yourself. Well, if you're going to take care of it yourself, You need to know what spirits you're working with, so forth and so on. And you have to know what each one of them does. The very first thing, and I'm going to give this advice. Uh, Whenever I am doing baneful magics, period, end of story. Very first thing I do is I cleanse and banish all the energies and spirits from the area I'm working. Uh, I open up a door or a window so that these spirits or energies have room to go out. Now, what's so important about that is you need to have a clear area because you're going to be building energy in it. But anyway, so banish cleansing area. For those of you who know the Necronomicon, the Anu Shu Bam Giga Su Kisha Giga Garshagda, CC Amaradiya spell with the bread and salt works just fine. Maybe you have your own version of cleansing and purifying the area. It doesn't matter what, but you need to cleanse and purify the area, release the spirits that are in the area before you get started. Because once you start doing these types of workings, like Thorne was saying, you're involving whatever spirits are there. And so the idea is you want to start with a clear battlefield because you have to set the board if you were playing chess, or you have to set the battlefield. You have to be a strategist to this. So the very first thing you do, cleanse, clear the area. Then prepare your circle, your whatever your altar, whatever you're working from. It doesn't matter what. Oh, you're welcome, flamboyant. Uh, and the reason why is because you need a place where you're going to be calling in the spirits, where you're going to be calling in your help and your armies and your legions of spirits and allies and so forth and so on. And it's also where you're going to be building energy. Because the most important thing, and nobody ever thinks of this, and and if they do, they don't talk about it, is the fact that one of the ways to keep from dealing with backlash or energy coming back or whatever terminology people like to use is the fact of the matter is you have to disconnect from what you're doing. That's I I know it sounds like I just keep preaching about this, but you have to learn to disconnect from it. Because just as much as you're creating it and you're building it, it's coming from within you. You're making it external, but you need to make certain that at the end of that you're shutting it off. That way, the energy dissipates fully into your target instead of having any remnant come back. Which even if you do, there are tips and tricks you can use. Second thing, using the concept of being a strategist. Go for your enemy's weak spots. Uh, Here's an example. You have to think of it this way. You want to take away their defenses, their walls. You have to take away their archers, so their watchtowers, as Thorne would say. You know, their walls and all this other stuff. How do you do this? Think, who are their allies? And even if you don't know who their allies are, whether physical or spiritual, no matter what, you can always give the command to remove, to strip one's enemies of all that aids and protects them. And you word it just like that. Because you're stripping them apart till they're naked, basically, so that it's an easy attack, so it's an easy kill. This is success in magical attacks. You have to strip your enemy down. Second thing is that once you've got their physical area took care of, stripped down for their defenses and stuff like that, stripping away their protection from other people, cutting off their protection and their aid and stuff magically. Then the very next thing you want to do is you want to make sure that you're targeting just that person. Because even if you stripped away things, sometimes just because if your target has a very strong connection to somebody else, and this is something they don't talk about, your attacks can literally get bounced off onto them, especially if they're using them as shields. And so, once again, you have to think like a strategist. This isn't overthinking it or anything like this, but this is making sure that you get through. What you want to do is you want to make sure that they're hedged. This is where you can use items like long-stemmed thorned roses. where you can use brambles with thorns and stuff, a ball of it. Use a picture of your enemy in the center of it. This makes sure that they're trapped within it. Symbolism is everything. No, hellfire is awesome. That's part of the magical fire that you would use to consume your enemy, brother. So I get that. Uh, I've noticed you've said that quite a few times. I like the word itself, hellfire. But anyway, so then you've made sure that your enemy is just what they are. Now, if you're a particularly cold, cruel, vicious motherfucker, if you find yourself in need of it, I like Ender's idea of playing with your enemy. But instead of sitting there telling them that you're going to curse them or that you have cursed them or anything like this, here's another way you can fuck with them. Did you know that there are a long line of spirits? Jinn from the Book of Smokeless Fire, spirits out of the Goetia. There are all kinds of spirits from all avenues that what they do is they call plagues upon your intended victim.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is for a long, drawn out. This is like when you're going to be an evil bastard, you would use something like this. You would want to cause plagues upon them. You remove their defenses, and you make sure that they're hedged in, that they're surrounded by a hedge. Then you would like do like one that either causes them to slowly start to lose their mind. Because if they don't have their mind, guess what they can't do? They can't formulate strategy. They can't just keep doing shit that they've been doing. I use a rule of thumb. I bind by 5. I bind their tongue that they may not be able to speak words against, neither to defend nor to attack. I bind their eyes that they may not be able to see what is coming their way. I bind their mind that they may not be able to formulate a plan or an idea. I bind their legs and their feet that they may not run nor flee from my attack. And then last and least, and this is usually the deadliest, this is the coup de grace to make sure it works. I bind their potency. I bind their creative outlet. Basically, if they're a male, it's the sex organ. You bind it because that's where a lot of that's where a lot of true power comes from in people. Believe that or not, is that sexual energy, that energy to create or to destroy. It's there, and so you bind them there too. So, like I said, I bind them by 5. Not because it's symbolic of the 5 points on certain. No. It binds most perfectly. They can't think.
A lot of things in Magic, you don't want to exceed 3 or 5 in your commands or in your dealings.
Yeah, you want to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah, 3 and 5 are 3 to me is the most important number in Magic to me.
3. Well, here's what I do. I bind with my will and my desire, and then whatever it is that I'm trying to cause to my enemy, that's what I use the spirits for to aid me in doing. So forth and so on. And that way, when the attack is carried out, the attack is carried out. And then, like I said, and when you've done this, and it is a cold uncertainty, and you've done exactly what you're going to do. Now, if you're going to fuck with your enemy and weaken them, because, like, let's say that you're dealing with an extremely powerful person who has, like, tons of followers and this, that, and the other, or that has, so much backing and everything else, and his mind fucked the masses into thinking they're a god. You're going to want to take a solid week. Make sure that it's during the time that the moon is waning, going dark, so that it's taking away, so that you have access to the psychic energies of removal or death, destruction, the taking away. And what you're going to want to do is, and it doesn't matter anywhere in there, just as long as the 7 days are within that, each day you want to recast the same spirit or spell to weaken their mind, to cause a plague, anything of this nature. And what will happen is that slow decay, it weakens and weakens and weakens and weakens and weakens them even further. So that then on the seventh night, when you're ready to do that, then you send the spirit that is going to be doing the work, or you cast your death spell or your removal spell, wherever you're doing it.
You can time that with the new moon, working into the new moon. That's very good, because that's when things build. So you're reducing them, and then you're building up your own offense to them. That's moon phases are, to me, they're the most important correspondence for my magic is moon phases. Doesn't mean it's always relevant, but a lot of the times I will rely on moon phases for deciding what type of action to take. But you have to remember, you can play mind games with yourself, and you can turn any moon phase into whatever you want just by changing your intention a little bit. Like William was saying, you might have been saying, why would you use the waning moon to start attacking someone? Well, because you're decreasing them. But not only that, the waning moon's having the same effect on them that it might have on your magic. They're getting decreased as well. Anything that they're doing is in this cycle of winding down for the new moon so it can build again. So you're also attacking them when they're their weakest as well, usually. Not always, but usually. I wanted to add a couple things. When you're talking about, like, you're clearing your ritual chamber, one thing I would say is, for normal spells, my ritual environment, my home, everything, I have it like an ecosystem, and I have things set up as best I can to take care of themselves. I don't necessarily clear my ritual space very often at all unless a spirit requests it. I've had spirits want that. Like Azazel preferred a cleared and warded ritual chamber. Now, a warded ritual chamber, there's a lot of different ways to do it. I like to visualize the chamber becoming enveloped in a force field of glowing energy, which has either my seal, my personal seal, or the seal of the spirit that I'm calling in. And I will envision this. Now I'll use my wand, I'll use my staff, or I'll just intone. I'll use my Zen fingers, so to speak, and I'll charge these things. I will feel this, and I mean, with real force and emotional energy, and I can see literally the walls in my mind's eye, in the astral sense. I see them begin to glow and swirl with the color, especially if there's a color associated with that spirit that I'm calling. Then it will be warded against any intrusion. But my home and my ritual space, I have it surrounded by, like I said, life. I have animals here. My home used to be off limits to shadows because I wasn't ready to work with them. Now, about 3 o'clock in the morning, especially if there's been a fight in the house in the last 24 hours, you'll see out of the corner of your eyes little shadows moving all the time. I'll see little dark shapes all the time in my home. They are part of the natural ecosystem here now. And as I often say, my secrets guard themselves. I have things like pyrite, which is, when properly employed, becomes a very good ward. Onyx, obsidian, is very good for absorbing negative energy and flow and transmuting it into protective energy. So there's all these little things you can do to ward and to create a kind of magical ecosystem that doesn't require frequent banishing. If I'm using my incense enough, if I'm working with strong spirits, if I have like Malthus, who's constantly on, he's got a tower in my home, nothing's getting in, things are usually good. So unless a spirit requires requests, or otherwise I feel necessary to do a house cleaning, as I call it, I don't mess with it. With the exception, as Waylon said, baneful magic requires surgical cleanliness, because you don't want any risk. Your spirits might not like what you're doing too, Your spirits might not approve. You might have a spirit you're working with that works with that person as well. You always have to keep this in mind and make sure that whatever you're doing, you are working, as you said, from a battlefield that is set up to your advantage. Not you don't want it messy. You don't want your cavalry to trip over the stones in the field as they're going to charge your enemy. You want to make sure that this is ready to go in your favor. Now, for baneful working, for anything, we're talking about strategy. A lot of people play chess and checkers, and this is a very aggressive game where you're supposed to take pieces and remove pieces and get stronger. In Chinese philosophy, especially, which is Sun Tzu's The Art of War, a game like Go or Othello or Chinese checkers is way more effective, and it's a much more difficult game to play. If anybody plays that game, I'm not as good as I wish I was, and the objective is not as aggressive. In fact, a lot of the times the best ways to win is to give up ground, and the Russians proved this in World War II, giving up ground to the Nazi invasion. They pulled them into their frozen tundras and they suffered for it. The same thing happens in baneful magic as well. Don't always think that your attacks have to be aggressive in nature. Your attacks can be very they would call it yin in Chinese energy. It's yin magic, and you're essentially it's a different. Don't think that yin means lack of energy. It's a different kind of energy. It's a pull instead of a push. And like in judo, you can throw a person down much more easily by pulling them down than you can by pushing them over. And in the same spirit, offensively in magic, you can do a lot with pulling energy, like Wayne was talking about. That's why I jumped in with this waning moon. This is very much a yin attack. This is very much playing go, not checkers, because you're not aggressively smothering them in damage. You're pulling them in by weakening them slowly, using this low draining, this bleeding out. You can draw an enemy into a trap, is what I'm kind of getting at, and you can pull them into a trap magically. Now, I mean, to be honest with you, my experience in baneful magic it's not something that I've done 100,000 times. This is not my specialty at all. Has it happened? Have I done it? Yes. Is it my focus? No. Most of the time, my focus is on ascension and getting more power to myself and to become more in tune with my true intention and will to have a more pleasurable or more fulfilling life. Really is more fulfilling. So, they often say like the best the best curse is to live well. What is it? The best way to piss off your enemy is to live well. And the last thing I wanted to say is magical, baneful magic is more like a shotgun or a hand grenade than it is a sniper rifle or a precision attack. It has been my experience that when I have worked baneful magic, first of all, magic should never be so specific that it can't work. You should always leave room for the magic to do whatever it needs to do to get the outcome that your true intent desires. But the problem is that let's say you do release your true intent and your true intent is to harm someone. You may be taking out a lot of innocent people in the process because that baneful magic doesn't care who it hurts, especially with some of these spirits that we were talking about in this book of Smokeless Fire. You will, to give you an example, let's say you wanted to kill someone again. I always go to kill because that's what everybody thinks of. They might have to die in a car accident, and that car accident might be with a drunk driver that also kills all the children in the car. You might wipe out an entire family, and it might not just be your target. It might be an innocent person as well. So be aware. This is not because I believe in karma or anything like that, but you still have a conscience. You still have a feeling of what's happened. When you target someone, you could be hurting everyone around them, the innocent people around them who have to live with the loss of a loved one or with the effects that the curse have on them. I might hate you really a lot, but I might like your family. I might like your wife or your child or your dog. Even if I just feel bad for your dog, this is something you have to realize. Again, with true intention, if your true intention is at work, which it's always going to be, and you have your true intent is, I don't want to hurt the dog. If you destroy the dog's master, what's going to happen to the dog? So your true will might still step in the way and say, I'm not going to let you do your baneful working. This is why Waylon and I keep saying you have to be willing to just go up to them and go pow before you can do it, because most of the time people don't want to hurt people as much as they think they do. And they don't want to involve innocence as much as they think they want to. This is why, I often say only true psychopaths, really, really, really are willing to do that kind of magic, because it's just not what most sane people are looking to do. It's not even morality. It's just most people have a sense of, I didn't want to do that. That's not what I wanted. And I think Wayne and I both have had that experience where it was like that guy who had the heart attack in the middle of the store. I didn't want him to die. That wasn't my wish. That was what the spirits decided needed to happen. And it makes you take a step back. So remember, magic of all kinds is more like a shotgun blast or a grenade or a nuke or something. It's not a precision tool, but with the exception that you will always get what your truest intention is. So in that sense, it is precision, but it's not going to always align with what your ego thinks is your truest intention, if I'm making any sense there. Your ego might not want the results that your spiritual self is willing to accept. So, it's not to scare you. It's to try to get you to, you should always begin. You should always meditate on any action in magic before you do it. Always spend some time in quiet meditation and really think it through, or just let your mind go. Because, I think S. Ben Kane said this best. A lot of baneful magic is really just to get cathartic effects. You will cast your dark, evil, vicious, badass curse, And if you did it correctly, you're letting go, aren't you? You're supposed to let go of the result. So what ends up happening is you don't care anymore. You've given up, not given up, but you've given up on your hatred, on your anger. You've reached catharsis, because if you're doing the spell correctly, you're pumping all of your anger, hatred, and aggression into the spell. And you should leave it on the altar, basically, like, not to borrow a Christian term, but you should leave it on the altar and not pick it back up again. Never pick up that anger and that hatred ever again, because that means it's just not going to work. So again, does it matter if your target dies or suffers a consequence or a curse or a horrible action? If you've gotten rid of all the things that were hurting you about it, even if you don't get your result in the form of a manifestation that is aligned with what you said, you're still getting a manifestation. And this is one of the reasons why I can often say, people often get their magic to work more often than they realize, because a lot of the times the result is not what they think it's supposed to be, if that makes sense. And I hate to make it sound like fate, because a big part of magic in everybody's mind is that you're twisting fate and bending reality to your will. If you're like me, you understand that your will is always, whether you're aware of doing it or not, it's always happening. Your will is always what's happening. It's just, you have to be aligned with that will instead of trying to control it. When you're aligned with your will, you won't know the difference. You'll still feel like you're in control of it, because you're aligned with it. It's the same as yours. So I mean, that's a higher level esoteric, mystical idea, and I don't want to get into that. That's a separate topic. I think we're getting. How long have we been running here, Waylon?
We're gonna cut it off here in about 10 minutes or so. I want to comment on something though.
Yeah.
I put in here, magic will always follow the path of least resistance.
Least rational resistance.
That's why you have to be so precise in your wording and your will and your desire.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this. I've done baneful curses and magic against people. Never with the intent. Well, never my ass.
Yeah, shut up.
Let's put it this way. I went with the intent, and this was my intent. Do whatever it takes to remove this problem. And the scary thing is that the 2 out of the 3 times that I've had to resort to it, it killed 2 of 3.
Mm-hmm.
And
often a lot easier than some other endings.
I wouldn't have wished death, and here's why. Because first off, I love life. I absolutely love life.
Yeah.
But there is one thing about it. What doesn't kill you only makes you stronger, but damn it, the shit you can live through. Yeah, well, sometimes it can leave you so beaten, so battered that it's not worth living, and that's the way I like to see my enemy.
Mm-hmm. As I said, living well is the best revenge, and in the other end of the spectrum, yeah, living poorly is the greatest. Yeah.
One of the but following too with what you were talking about, and it's why I threw out there that magic will always follow the path of least resistance. The last person I had a problem with. When I set my intent out there, I knew for a matter of fact that this particular gin can cause death. And it's the reason why I chose it is because if it took that. Now I left it completely up to the spirit. You know what I'm saying? I didn't try to whatever. But the thing is that what happened is the dude's wife died. And it so fucked him up mentally and everything else. Problem was gone.
Yep.
In a month, dude had moved and left, and it hasn't been seen since. And I hate that it came to that point.
Sure.
And that can be seen as me being false about that, but it's not. I honestly, I had no problem with his wife at all.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? She was already dying of cancer though. And so the thing is that what happened was it took a life to remove it, because I don't think a lot of people understand that when I sit there and I say that there is nothing in this world that is free, it's not. Your magic, the cost of being able to do what you're able to do, what you're capable of doing, of what you can do, it will cost you something. It always will, because nothing in this world is free. The thing is, you don't let that hold you back. You don't think anything like that. But what are you willing to sacrifice to your path? I don't walk a magical path of badassery, kill all my enemies. No.
No, that's the edgy, childish start. A lot of people start there, but that's not where you end up when you get advanced. It's
Well,
your
I never even started there. My path was always this right here: to be the best me and to be a more whole me.
my path started with reading your little Necronomicon that you love so much, even though I never practiced that much out of it. Listening to Slayer in the middle of the night, freaking, cutting myself and putting drops of blood on candles and saying, "Come get me, bitches." So I was the edgy, gothy asshole that you avoided being, I guess.
Well, I had a lot of friends that were into that sort of thing. Uh, but just because our wheels didn't quite align with one another, we were still friends. We were still whatever. Uh, because to each their own, and everybody has their own path to walk, and everybody has their own experiences that they have to go through.
I want to add one more thing since we're talking about baneful spells. Blood in baneful magic is risky. Make sure you're careful if you're going to use baneful magic. Blood is very potent, but it also creates connection to you. Unlike other forces, I'm not saying don't use it. I'm saying be very, very careful how you use it, because if they are skilled, if like let's say you're doing a baneful curse where you're leaving a poppet or you're leaving a jar or something in their vicinity, God forbid they find it and it's got your blood on it and they know what they're doing. You are fucked 6 ways to Sunday and 7 times on Sunday.
Yep.
You are totally fucked at that point. And it's unless you're like me. Now I've practiced with blood almost my whole life. It's something in my spiritual DNA, I guess you could say. My blood is I don't want to say it's different, but I can play with mine differently. It's
You're
just
with your shit, man.
it's just what maybe it's the vampire current I worked in. Blood is a part of everything, that almost every spell. I mean, I have it's on everything that I do. Blood is a key. I mean, it's absolutely fundamental to everything. So I can use it, but I still, even that said, if I was cursing you, I would not leave anything with a bodily fluid and least of all blood on it. Some people just don't know that. I'm just putting that out there because some people will be like, I'm going to put my blood on it. It's going to be real powerful, or my semen or something. Be very careful what you leave in your curse, because you don't want that coming back like a boomerang.
I'm glad you put that out there, because the very last part that I was going to say about it is right in alignment with that. And this is the closing aspect of it. Like as before, where you had to cleanse, purify the area you were working in, guess what you get to do all over again?
Yep, you got to recharge everything.
And purify the area of all the energy you built up, of all the malignancy that you built up. You got to clear and pave the way. And then it's a really good idea, because you removed it of the destruction causing energies. You need to make sure that you invoke and call into your area healing, life-giving, benevolent energies. You have to. It's no different than I love people who are like, well, I've cast banishings and cleansings and all this, that, and the other, and yet it keeps coming back. It keeps coming back.
You put good energy in its place.
You have to fill it with something.
Yeah. Not only that, but remember when you're doing Bane, this is something I should have mentioned earlier. I don't know why it slipped my mind. I don't do baneful magic where I eat. You know what I mean? I generally, if I'm going to do baneful magic, I go elsewhere. I go to a secluded place that I don't use very often, that I don't care what I leave on the altar. I don't care what I leave in the area, because it's not my home. I don't like doing baneful work in my own home, with the exception of, like Waylon said, I have to go through and really, you have to, don't just Febreze that fucker. You got to do a deep clean. I mean, be very careful. Sometimes you got to use all new tools. I'm totally honest right here. You can't always use the same tool that you would use for other things. Sometimes you have to create a magical tool for that purpose and then destroy it, cast it, throw it in a fire. When you're doing, I like using bonfires. Bonfires, it's like everything in the old days was done upon a fire, okay? Everything had an altar of fire that you would dispose of your offerings and things. So when I go off into the wilderness to banefully do something, which I said I don't do very often, but in the occasions that I've done, it's almost always been around a bonfire in the woods somewhere, something like that, where I could strip naked and I could fucking pump every piece of evil that I could find into that fire, dance around it, stab it, burn my hand. I'm serious. Listen to this. Burn your fucking hand on the fire and feel that anger and hate and power. Push it into the, don't be afraid to hurt yourself a little bit. Push it all in there and really rev up that hate and cast it into that fire and let that shit burn down. Leave the ashes for the world to deal with. And when you walk away, you should have this envisioning of cutting whatever cords are attached to you. You need to envision, like, whatever, however you want to do it. Your spirits are behind you, chopping.
Or a pair of scissors.
Whatever it is, use whatever visualization. I like to use a sword. I carry a sword in my magic a lot, or a dagger. Imagine that sword is behind you, just chopping that energy. Imagine like the smoke following you. Just imagine it being wafted and chopped, and just because if you bring any of that home with you, you're like Waylon said, that's not good either. Leave it on the altar, and honestly, that's also the beautiful thing about doing it elsewhere is you don't have to clean it up. You can leave it where it lies and let the world absorb that hate and push it into your enemy. It's a little better than just scooping it up and throwing it in the backyard in a dumpster somewhere.
And a quick interruption on that. Make for certain, whoever your target is, make sure that you see the cord between you and them being severed too.
Yeah, and that goes back to that break binding spell that I have on my blog. It's very simple. You just invoke Vine and you use a piece of leather cord. You pump it full of the energy of whatever baneful act is being put upon you. It works best against the binding. You tie your wrists with this leather cord that after you've charged it with the energy and intent of your enemies, and you break it and you burn it in whatever receptacle you can and get rid of those ashes. Get rid of them. It's the same principle, but in reverse. You can also reverse it with a candle spell. You can turn your candle upside down, pump all that negative energy into it, and burn it the wrong way, and it will return to the opponent. You can use mirrors. There's no end to the synchronistic symbolism you can use. Be creative, be inventive. You don't need to pick up a book and say, what's a baneful spell? Think about what would work, because what you think is going to work probably will in most cases, because it's really about your intention having an avenue in the physical world to work. And I'm going to let you do what you got to do now.
Well, we're going on the 2 hours and 51-minute mark.
Who's going to watch this, man? When you're this long, nobody watches them again.
I know. With that being said and done, I sincerely hope that everything we've said here, even though it's long drawn out, and you got to come back and pick up pointers, hopefully it's helpful. Maybe you've been taking notes throughout this, or you remember it well. To do this, to explain this, is to help you. If this is something you're going to do, these are the things you need to be aware of. I neither condemn nor condone.
Yeah. And you might also wonder why we're not talking about specifics about spells specifically for this. You can find a spell anywhere. It's the rest of it that we're talking about. That's where the skill is. You can find a spell to do any of this in any grimoire, even out of a fucking movie. You can find whatever you need. It's this higher level intention and this understanding how to play the mind games and how to work the energy. That's one of the reasons why Waylon and I like to get together, because it's not just about, get this and write this 5 times and do this, blah, blah, blah. That's the, I don't know, that's the least important part in a lot of cases.
Yep. And with that being said and done, gonna wish each and every single one of you peace, blessings, and power.
Till next. See you later, brother.
Later.